He was a tamer who couldn't even handle the basics. He failed to command even the most pathetic low-level monster. But that's only because those fools were blind to the truth. Kohaku possessed a vision that defied all human logic. He could see them, the legendary spirits. These invisible phantoms were completely forgotten by the world. Every guild in his homeland treated him like absolute trash. He was cast out and forced to leave with nothing to his name. But he wasn't alone. He had his fiercely loyal companions. These were beings that only he was capable of touching. He's been cast away into a mysterious, far-off land. Now he's ready to carve out a brand new destiny for himself. He's going to prove to the world that this mocked and misunderstood tamer is a force to be reckoned with. He possesses the rare gift to forge unbreakable bonds with the ultimate beasts. But can someone with such a gentle spirit truly dominate the most terrifying forces in existence? It's time to find out! Our epic tale begins within the grand halls of the Azure Kingdom's Adventurers Guild. A disgruntled clerk scowls at him, demanding to know if he's really just a common Tamer. In a world swarming with monsters, Tamers are the elite hunters who bind beasts to purge evil. But does he actually know how these familiars work? He's stuck with the dirty work of fighting and scouting, but the guild worker just scoffs, demanding to know where his backup is. He can't possibly survive this alone, and he's struggling just to get registered before the real mission starts. Frustrated and desperate, he reveals his secret. He has the power to tame terrifying spectral monsters called phantasms. He claims Claire's fire spirit is standing right there, but the worker's blood begins to boil at the obvious lie. The worker snaps, leaping to his feet and shouting for him to shut his mouth. He tries to explain that 2 more ghosts are waiting at the inn, but the annoyed worker just orders him to take his delusions elsewhere. He retreats from the hall, clinging to the belief that his true path is to become a master tamer. He possesses the rare gift to contract with invisible spirits, yet every guild treats him like a complete laughingstock. The local adventurers mock him behind his back, whispering about the trash tamer who plays with imaginary friends as he realizes his reputation is already ruined. Claire, the spectral fire spirit, was completely invisible. She stood firmly by his side, shouting that he wasn't a liar, even though every guild pulls the same stunt before kicking them to the curb. He just gave a helpless smile, knowing words would never be enough to convince them, while she screamed in frustration, unable to take another second of this disrespect. Every single negotiation is a total disaster, and these idiots have the nerve to call Kohaku a fraud and a weakling while spreading nasty rumors behind his back. Despite the lies, he just grinned, telling her that she's the only reason he hasn't completely lost his cool. He's incredibly thankful because she's always the one jumping into the fire to defend him. His honesty caught her completely off guard, and with a soft smile, she finally spoke up. She told him he needs to vent his rage for his own sake, but he just kept smiling, relieved that her temper finally cooled off. As they stepped outside, she panicked, asking what's next, since every guild in the land has blacklisted them. But when he just looked at her blankly, she exploded, demanding to know if he'd lost his mind. She couldn't understand his obsession with being a Tamer, arguing that if he just claimed to be a fire mage, they'd be set. But he just smiled and warned her that faking his calling would land him straight in a dungeon. Fuming, she yelled about how everyone is obsessed with these stupid labels, while he realized that this entire kingdom, no, the whole world, was blinded by them. In this world, your calling is absolute, and your social status dictates exactly how you're treated. It's a brutal system where society judges your entire worth based on how prestigious your job looks. Standing before a weathered old house, he accepts his fate. He was born into this reality and has to play by its rules. He resolves to give it his absolute best as he throws the door wide open. He's greeted by the legendary divine wolf Fenrir and the mechanical doll Sufia, flashing them a grin as he announces he's home. Sufia rushes to his side, calling him master and handing him his gear, but he can only sigh and apologize for such a disastrous day. He leans his head down in exhaustion, finding comfort in the fact that everything is finally okay. His heart swells with happiness just being near them, and he offers a sincere thank you for their presence. But the mood shifts instantly as Claire turns away, her face twisted with pure jealousy. She snaps at Sufia, loudly demanding to know why she's being so clingy and sniffing around him. She looked completely baffled and demanded an explanation, but her blood boiled as she screamed that she'd already wiped her face clean. Flashing a smug grin, she teased that her mind was just playing tricks again, making her shout in embarrassment that she wasn't seeing things. With a nasty smirk, she suggested her fantasies were getting even more twisted, pushing her to the breaking point as she yelled that she was done with the lies. Fed up with the nonsense, Rear asked what the plan was now that he'd been rejected by every single guild in the Azure Kingdom. With every door slammed in his face, he had nothing left, so he gathered the group and made a desperate proposal. If they were all in, they were leaving this country behind for good. It was time to move on. The fighting stopped instantly as Sufia asked if they were really leaving, and he admitted that a foreign guild might be their only hope. He knew the nasty rumors had already poisoned the nearby lands, so he had to find a distant kingdom where nobody knew his face. To escape his past, he finally announced his plan to travel all the way to the kingdom of Burman. Claire spoke up, remembering that Burman was home to a legendary Tamer guild, and he confirmed she was exactly right. Wiener steps up, ruffles his hair, and swears to follow him to the very end. Sophia calls out to him, her voice filled with pure resolve. She looks him in the eye and tells him he can always count on her. She'll follow him to the ends of the earth, and Claire admits she's coming along for the ride too. Overwhelmed by their loyalty, our hero calls out to his comrades. He speaks their names with pride and thanks them from the bottom of his heart. With a confident grin, he tells them to pack their gear. They move out at sunrise. Sufia steps outside and activates a massive holographic display. She connects with the other phantasms and drops the bombshell news. They're absolutely stunned by the revelation as she stares them down and declares she dropped the bombshell. The master is abandoning the Azure Kingdom and heading straight for Burman. With a look of pure sorrow, the phantasm cried that she traveled across the world just to be by his side. In this nation, he's already worshipped as a deity by the people who carry his holy blessing. She begged them to stay calm while reiterating the cold truth. The master is officially leaving. This country failed to recognize his true worth, and now he's forced to walk away forever. He had to make the painful choice to leave because this kingdom pushed him to the breaking point. Every phantasm she contacted erupted in a synchronized roar, refusing to accept this tragic fate. The next morning, the king demands to know why Gaia hasn't sent them a single sign. They gave their offerings to the goddess, and his advisor insists that everything went according to plan. But the prophecy never came, leaving them to pray and wait for a vision that refuses to appear. A servant bursts into the throne room, frantically shouting for the king with news that will shake the realm. Their guild's absolute strongest warrior has been crippled, unable to use a single one of his legendary skills. The king reels back in total shock, demanding to know if this is some kind of mental breakdown. But the truth is terrifying. His powers simply vanished, leaving the king screaming that this can't be happening. While he struggles to understand how spiritual power could just fail, a desperate crowd of villagers storms the hall. They cry out that the water is turning to sludge, the crops are rotting, and their holy saints have lost their light. Their master mages and alchemists are powerless. The air itself is turning toxic, and a massive horde of monsters is closing in. The king collapses in tears, completely overwhelmed by the wave of absolute disaster crashing down on him. Meanwhile, Gaia realizes she forgot to say goodbye, but her companion coldly reminds her that it's far too late for pleasantries. The second they leave this land, every single thing in it is destined to be wiped off the face of the earth. She tried to speak, but he cut her off, declaring he'd stripped away every ounce of sword skill he'd ever taught the nation that dared to cross Kohaku. They didn't need it anyway. Now their only choice was to abandon everything and follow him into the unknown. Finally, our hero and his crew halted their march to set up camp under the cover of night. They pressed on with their journey until he suddenly shouted with pure, unbridled joy, "Look! We've finally made it to Alex, the grand capital of the Burman Kingdom." Claire cheered with excitement, promising him that this time they were going to succeed no matter what. He had to have faith in himself, knowing that together they were all stepping into a brand new world. At the city gates, he announced his name and his goal to join the Tamer's Guild, proving he'd traveled all the way from the Azure Kingdom, and the guard confirmed his papers were perfectly in order. "Got any monsters tamed?" the guard asked, while our hero glanced nervously at the spirits by his side, knowing the man couldn't see them at all. He sadly admitted he had no monsters yet, making Claire explode with indignation as she screamed his name. He figured a no would be way more believable, even if it killed him that he couldn't prove his monster was real. The clerk looked him over, asking if he was just a rookie starting his journey as a tamer. "A tamer, right? Welcome to Alex!" he cheered with a warm, welcoming smile. Walking through the city, that title felt strange. It had been forever since he'd heard it, and it made him feel like a total freak. Sufia pointed out the quickest shortcut to the guild, and he gave her a grateful look, knowing he'd be lost without her. As he followed the path, it became crystal clear. Not a single soul in this country knew his true identity. This was his fresh start, and he was absolutely going to crush it this time. He finally reached the Tamer's Guild and pushed open the heavy doors. The sight that met his eyes left him completely speechless. No matter where he looked, The entire hall was packed with monsters of every shape and size. Honestly, what else would you expect from a guild that lives and breathes monster taming? He never saw this many beasts back in the Azure Kingdom, but clearly things have changed. It turns out every nation is different, and then, in a heartbeat, every monster in the room froze in absolute shock the moment they spotted him. Terrified, they dove behind their masters, leaving the tamers baffled as to why their powerful pets were shaking like leaves. Our hero is completely thrown off, since he thought ordinary people couldn't even perceive phantasms. But since these are companion beasts, they can sense the truth, reminding him of that one petrified monster he encountered. Sufia steps in to explain that phantasms are actually the most evolved and elite class of creatures in existence. Because of their status, every other monster is deathly afraid of them, a fact he's never heard in his life. She explains that since normal monsters can't speak, they show their terror through their instincts. Just as he whipped out a fresh apple and held it out to the terrified creature. He apologized for the scare, leaning in close to ask if the little guy wanted a taste. The monster snatched it up with joy, forming an instant bond that left her beaming with happiness. He marched straight to the counter to demand guild membership, but the clerk told him he'd have to wait. He cast a glance at the monsters cowering in fear. He offered a silent apology, planning to vanish the moment this was over. Right as the worker stepped up, she apologized for the holdup and greeted him with a massive, welcoming smile. As a proud member of the Saria Tamers Guild, she welcomed him as he introduced himself, ready to join their ranks. Pure embarrassment washed over him as he realized just how awkward his voice sounded. She slammed a glowing crystal ball onto the table and commanded him to touch it. He stared at the strange object, completely baffled, and demanded to know what he was looking at. She explained it's a cutting-edge crystal invention, exclusive to this guild, that exposes your tamer rank and every monster you can control. Can this thing really identify every tameable beast? He asked, and she nodded, promising the crystal reveals every hidden secret. There was no room for lies. This device would expose the truth instantly. As she noticed his hesitation and spoke up, "Is something the matter?" she asked, but he braced himself and shouted that everything was perfectly fine. His heart hammered against his ribs as overwhelming emotions forced tears to well up in his eyes. He stood there in shock, realizing that everything he had spent a lifetime searching for was finally right in front of him. Claire soared toward him, urging him to take the leap, while Sufia prepared to uncover the truth. He reached out and pressed his hand against the sphere, triggering a massive, blinding explosion of light. His familiar bragged that the light wasn't nearly as beautiful as she was, before asking if she could just gobble it up. She quickly apologizes and tells him he can finally pull his hand away. Kohaku pulls back instantly, his face turning bright red with embarrassment. She spots 3 golden sparks dancing in the orb and explains the process. This light will scan his hidden tamer data, so he just needs to wait a moment. She frantically flips through her guidebook until her eyes lock onto something impossible. Her jaw drops in pure disbelief as she gasps out, "What on earth is this?" She lunges forward, grabbing his shoulder and screaming at the top of her lungs. "Are you seriously a phantasm, Tamer?" she yells, making every head in the room spin. He gives a nervous nod, and they quickly rush over to the reception desk. Right there in the lobby, she drops to her knees and begs for forgiveness for causing such a massive scene. He looked visibly stressed, but tried to calm the situation, suggesting they sit down and talk, and she shouted her thanks in excitement. She plopped onto the sofa, and he immediately asked why she was so stunned, since he thought the crystal revealed everything. She explained that the crystal's glow identifies the monster. Red for beasts, purple for insects, green for nature, and black for powerful dragons. But the color for phantasms remained a total enigma, leaving him to ask the big question: what happens now? She flipped through her book and realized gold wasn't even listed. These were completely undiscovered legendary phantasms. She was certain he was a master tamer and kept bowing in apology until he finally admitted the truth. He really could tame them. Looking at the glowing marks, it was clear he'd already tamed 3 of them, and she was dying to know exactly where they were. Our hero just gestured toward the corner of the room and told her they were standing right there. She rushed over with pure excitement, pointing to the empty air and asking if they were really right in front of her. Claire watched this madness with total concern, while Sufia just rolled her eyes and told her she was being way too annoying. Should she just take her out right now? Too bad for you, because you never should have laid eyes on them. Her face twisted into a manic grin as she burst into a fit of wild, uncontrollable laughter. She lunged forward to get a better look, but the entire group recoiled in terror. They scrambled away, sprinting toward him with pure panic written all over their faces. Claire glared at her with total disgust, calling her out for being a complete freak. She hovered in the corner, panting heavily while gloating about breathing the same air as the monsters, as Sufiha begged from behind the sofa to kick her out for good. He tried to settle the chaos by calling her name, and she immediately snapped out of it, apologizing and admitting her twisted obsession with monsters. Just the mention of a new species sends her into a frenzy, and he realized right then that she was one of those obsessive types. He told her he was relieved she saw him as a true phantasm tamer, but a massive problem still remained. How on earth could he prove they were all actually in the room? Saria just flashed a smirk and promised it would be easy. All that stands between him and the guildmaster is one final showdown as they step into the massive arena. She steps forward with a grin, ready to make the formal introductions. Toa Eriheim of the Tamers Guild introduces herself with a spark in her eye, asking if he's the legendary phantasm tamer, and our hero nervously confirms his identity. She lets out a playful laugh, calling him a cute kid and telling him not to be scared, but he's baffled since he's turning 20 this year. She stands her ground with total composure, insisting he's still just a boy to her, even though she looks exactly his age. Her aura is absolutely suffocating, proving she's one of those elite tamers who's actually more powerful than her own familiars. His heart is racing because he can feel it. This woman is a total powerhouse. Fenrir creeps closer, sniffing the air and growling that she smells absolutely delicious. Claire senses her raw power, but Sophia mocks her as an annoying fly, sparking a heated explosion of insults and threats of being turned into scrap metal, while Kohaku watches the chaos spiral out of control. They start darting around her in a blur of motion, even though they know they're playing with fire. This is his golden ticket, a 1 in a million shot to secure a position here. With a sharp snap of his fingers, he commands Toa's full attention. She's completely baffled and demands to know what he just did. Ghostly phantasms swarm toward him as he claims he's calling back the spirits circling her. She's stunned that phantasms are actually invisible, and he smirks, realizing she totally believes him. She decides it's only fair that she gives him a proper introduction, too. She prepares to reveal her monster by raising her hands and preparing her lungs. She takes a massive breath and screams for Crutch to appear right now. Right then and there, a colossal shadow looms over the entire scene. The massive shadow starts peering around, sensing the presence of the phantasms. Phantasms are masters of stealth, staying completely hidden from the eyes of the living. To regular folks, they don't even exist, but dragons are a terrifying reality that everyone can see. Since they're undeniably real, the whole world agrees that dragons are the ultimate apex predators. Trembling with fear, he asks if she's really a dragon while she calmly strokes the beast's massive head. She praises his knowledge, revealing that this handsome creature is a legendary black dragon. He realizes dragons have a complex hierarchy, and this species sits at the absolute peak of power. Most are just dull gray, but the colored ones, red, blue, green, and the elite black, are on a whole different level. This is the deadliest, most savage breed in existence, a true, unstoppable monster. Crush unleashes a deafening roar that shakes the earth, but Fenrir doesn't even flinch. Fenrir mocks it as a mere lizard, Claire calls it a noisy pest, and Sufia cracks her knuckles, begging for permission to obliterate it. Our hero challenges them, asking if they're truly arrogant enough to believe they can crush a dragon. A one-on-one showdown with a dragon? The entire group falls into a stunned, heavy silence. Breaking the tension with total calm, they brag that it'll be a total cakewalk. Honestly, chopping a vegetable would be more of a challenge. He takes it all in and finally makes his move, announcing that Claire is his top pick for this fight. While the others seethe with jealousy, Claire promises to put on an absolute masterclass. Sufia scowls, calling her a pathetic fly who's only good for being a total bore. With a massive smirk, Claire calls her a little doll and tells her to stop throwing a tantrum just because she wasn't chosen. She drifts forward, humming a cheerful tune while the others boil with rage, and Toe asks if her draconic opponent has already arrived. Claire just giggles, asking if the monster is trying to act scary, which she thinks is cute, but the MC barks her name to get her back in line. She admits she's dying to know more about this phantasm, so he reveals she's the Spirit of Fire, one of his 3 powerful familiars. She hits him with a terrifyingly cold glare and a sharp smile, mocking the idea that she's supposed to be the great Spirit of Fire. He calls out to her, trembling with fear, but Claire just gives him a cool look and asks if he's forgotten who she is, telling him to let her handle this. His panic vanishes at her words, and suddenly Saria thrusts her hand into the air, shouting, "Is everyone ready for this?" With a sharp motion, she drops her hand and screams the command for the ultimate battle to begin. With a calm smile, she orders the dragon to unleash its breath, and when the beast calls out to her, she gives him the green light. Crusher obeys instantly, erupting with a massive, incinerating stream of fire aimed straight at the target. Toa is absolutely stunned when the smoke clears, and she sees a glowing barrier protecting him from the blast. The shield stands strong, and she watches him with a dark, confident smile. She brags that the black dragon's breath can melt through solid steel, admitting she never expected him to survive the heat. He stares her down and reveals that Claire is the supreme fire phantasm, meaning she literally eats fire attacks for breakfast. She just laughs in his face, declaring that it's time for everyone to fall to their knees and bow before her. She flashes a confident smirk, noting that such incredible power is exactly what you'd expect from a phantasm. She summons her dragon, and the beast lunges with a massive swipe, but she instantly snaps a barrier into place. She mocks the beast as a pathetic lizard, stunned that anyone actually had the strength to halt a dragon's crushing claw. Claire's hands tremble as she realizes that a single mistake in her mana would have shattered her shield into a million pieces. Kohaku sees the disaster coming and screams for her to retreat immediately before the situation turns fatal. The dragon pours on the pressure, obliterating her magical defense with one earth-shattering, powerful blow. Watching the chaos from below, she grins, knowing that retreating was the only smart move left. Claire rockets backward through the air, desperate to ask a question, but the words get caught in her throat. He explains it's the sheer force of the spell, a rare magic that pushes the human body to its absolute physical limits. This forbidden art is usually reserved for taming monsters, requiring a soul-binding contract with a true master of magic. She's mastered the art of strengthening magic, and he points a finger, shouting that the moment has finally arrived. It's their time to shine, and Claire screams out that she's more than ready to handle this. She thrusts her hand forward, unleashing a devastating breath skill that erupts into a massive torrent of fire. Saria's jaw drops in pure shock, while Sufia stays cool as ice, watching Toa soar into the sky on her dragon. Looking down at the smoking crater, she realizes this phantasm's dragon-like breath just neutralized every single one of their attacks. She touches down and wonders if fire spirits really have this much control. And the protagonist nods, but he's got a but coming. These spirits don't just move fire, they bend it to their will, cranking the heat to impossible levels. Stunned, she breaks into a laugh, admitting she totally underestimated how terrifyingly powerful these phantasms actually are. He's got two more monsters waiting in the wings, but as the girls start bickering over who's the strongest, Fenrir just sits back, completely unbothered. He tries to settle the chaos with a confused look, while Toe just pats her companion's head, knowing that arguing is totally useless. She slowly reaches out her hand, officially inviting him to join the Tamer's guild as their newest hunter. Pure joy surges through him as he eagerly takes her hand for a firm shake. After returning the gesture, he steps into the inner sanctum, marveling at the prestige of a guildmaster's office. He passed the test, but the room is a shock. Instead of luxury, it reeks of booze and grit, with a jagged knife buried right in the door. Toa enters the room balancing cups of tea, offering a quick apology for the wait as she serves him. He stammers out a thank you, his face turning beet red as he realizes just how breathtaking she truly is. His heart pounds against his ribs because no real woman has ever treated him with such genuine kindness before. She flashes a playful grin and tells him to relax since she won't bite, though she warns that Crush might swallow him whole. He lets out a shaky laugh, but his blood runs cold when she asks if he thinks she's joking, only to reveal it was a prank. He watches her with a look of pure dread, realizing her permanent smile makes it impossible to tell if she's being serious or just messing with his head. Claire calls out with a massive grin, showing off a mountain of chocolate chip cookies for Fenrir to see. Samir takes a big bite and raves about the flavor, while Sufia glares at them for their wild behavior. Toa watches the cookies vanish and wonders if ghosts are at work, but the MC knows they're just being devoured. They scramble to apologize for snatching the treats, but she just laughs, thrilled that they're enjoying her cooking. She reveals she baked them all herself, leaving him stunned and desperate to get a taste. He reaches for a cookie, only to find the plate completely empty. The others stroll away from the table, shamelessly bragging about how they polished off every last crumb. Sophia swoops in with a hidden cookie, telling him she saved the best for last, and he realizes he'd be lost without her. He takes a bite and is blown away by the flavor, making her beam with pride before she shifts the mood. With the tension gone, she suggests it's time for a serious talk and slams a mysterious package onto the table. She slams an object onto the table, declaring she's cutting straight to the chase while he stares back in total confusion. She commands him to open the case, and his jaw drops when he spots a gleaming emblem hidden inside. With a wide grin, she reveals it's his official Tamer's Guild badge, and he slowly reaches out to take it. He grips the bronze medal, confused why he's skipping iron rank. But she explains it's because he absolutely crushed her champion in battle. This is a special exception. He's starting at bronze, and even though he's skeptical, she confirms it's the real deal. Staring at the badge, he remembers the 7 long years of being rejected and mocked by every single guild he ever visited. He recalls the skeptics who constantly insulted him, insisting his flames meant he was a mage and not a true tamer. They accused him of being a total fraud, even threatening to report him for pretending to have taming powers. Everyone claimed phantasms were just myths, and that he was nothing more than a pathetic, lying failure. But as he gazes at the emblem in his palm, he realizes that his luck has finally turned around. Those 7 grueling years weren't a waste after all. His father's words were the fuel that pushed him to this very moment. Suddenly, he's jolted right out of his deep thoughts. Toa approaches him, breaking the silence of his memories. She grabs his hand tight and tells him to give it everything he's got. She vows to be his ultimate support and begs him to accept her help. She won't let a single soul insult him, and her words hit him so hard he bursts into tears. His phantasms are absolutely stunned to see him breaking down like this. He struggles to keep it together as pure, overwhelming joy makes his heart race. She gently strokes his head and tells him exactly what he needs to hear. She told him to let all those pent-up emotions explode so he could finally find some peace. After the dust settled, she checked if he was cool, and a humbled Kohaku begged for her forgiveness. Claire snapped, asking how much longer the petting would last, while Sufia fumed at their closeness, forcing him to awkwardly thank them all just to kill the tension, before Toe offered even more pity affection. He realized right then and there that he couldn't afford to show this kind of weakness ever again. She leaped off the couch and commanded him to get on his feet, and he didn't hesitate to obey. She looked him in the eye and told him to stay absolutely still. With steady hands, she began pinning the prestigious emblem right onto his gear. He looked away, face turning bright red as her sweet scent hit him, just as she announced she was finally finished. She told him to check the mirror, and when he spun around, his eyes widened at the sight. There it was, the majestic emblem shining brightly on his cloak. He's absolutely thrilled, and even the phantoms are watching him with pure awe. They're whispering about how handsome and cool he looks, claiming his new gear fits him like a glove. With a bright grin, she tells him he's finally ready to start taking on official jobs. He heads to the reception to get the full briefing from Surya, bowing deeply and promising to give it his all. With his goal set, he sprints for the exit while she watches him go with a supportive grin. He approaches her as she beams with joy, thanking her as they officially become teammates now that he's passed the exam. She starts to break down the guild's rules, and he asks if their main job is just fulfilling requests for the people. She confirms he's right, explaining that while others hunt, his bronze rank usually means scouting and gathering. He asks if he's allowed to slay weak monsters, or if his iron rank restricts him from combat entirely. She explains that while iron ranks usually stick to gathering, he's more than welcome to hunt down monsters if he chooses. He turns them down, admitting he's just a bronze rank who's totally clueless about how guilds and quests actually work. Instead of high-tier iron missions, he wants to start small with basic search and gathering tasks. To him, every request is a cry for help, and he's determined to save anyone in trouble, no matter how minor the job. His words leave her stunned, flashing her back to the moment she desperately begged her own monster for a miracle. Most bronze rookies just chase the biggest payouts, but this guy is unlike anyone she's ever encountered. A warm smile spreads across her face as she realizes he's truly a hero at heart. But a shadow of sadness crosses her eyes as she leads him away to explain the ropes of the quest system. They head over to the quest board where Saria explains that the high-stakes gold missions are strictly handled at the front desk, because those jobs are lethal, but the iron, bronze, and silver ranks are all right here, starting with simple herb gathering. From mining iron and catching runaway horses to clearing out spider nests and slaying 10 vicious goblins. He accepts the quest and decides to kick things off by gathering herbs, heading straight to the reception desk to lock the deal in. As he hits the streets, an employee rushes to Toa with a report from Saria, and she just laughs, knowing this simple task is exactly his style. She gazes out the window and catches sight of our main man in action. He's charging ahead with a look of pure joy, absolutely hyped to crush his first official task. They reach the woods, and Claire asks for the target amount, but he tells her to grab everything she can since these are vital for life-saving medicine. She scans the brush, confused because every leaf looks the same, so he calls on Sufia to see if this spot is the jackpot. Her eyes snap open as she announces that her magical detection field is finally online. He gives her a quick nod of thanks and points his finger toward their hidden prize. He asks if they see that crimson glow coming from the grass, because that's the exact treasure they're hunting for. Claire asks if she should just start harvesting, so he orders her to take flight and scavenge every single glowing leaf she can find. After gathering a mountain of herbs, Fenrir alerts him to a special patch by a tree that smells absolutely delicious. He calls Sufia over to inspect it, and she's shocked to find a rare, mutating plant that's about to evolve into a high-tier specimen. Fenrir looks up with a proud face, practically begging for praise, and the MC beams at him for being such a good boy. They quickly divide the bags to harvest every last leaf because in this world you can never have enough rare loot. A short while later, he marches back into the guild hall and announces his return to Saria with a confident grin. She asks if the quest was a struggle, and he admits he has a newfound respect for the iron ranks who grind these out every day. He asks where to drop the haul so she can start the appraisal, then signals Fenrir to bring the goods over. He grabs the bags as the entire room watches in awe, and he starts setting down 4 massive sacks, leaving Saria speechless as he jokes that his buddy did all the heavy lifting for this mountain of herbs he had. He nods with a nervous sweat, desperately hoping she isn't about to tell him this still isn't enough. Her jaw drops as she rips open the bags, stunned to find legendary herbs overflowing from every single one. "How is this even possible?" she demands, but he just looks away nervously, crediting his friend's mysterious and overwhelming power. She figures that's just par for the course with phantasms, even as he panics about whether gathering these unlisted treasures was actually legal. Far from a problem, they're actually overjoyed, because these rare herbs are nearly impossible to find, and a simple thank you won't cover a haul this massive. Seizing the chance, he asks for a warm hug as his reward, and she doesn't hesitate to say yes. She warns him that sorting through this mountain of loot will take ages, but Claire just lets out a confident laugh. Claire brags that the victory is hers alone, but Sufia snaps back, demanding to know why she always tries to steal all the glory. Totally offended, she shouts that she's the one who flew across the land and did all the backbreaking work to gather this haul. She just smirks right back, reminding her that without her expert scanning skills, they wouldn't have found a single blade of grass. Furious, she's ready to throw a punch, but the sound of someone laughing hysterically stops them both dead in their tracks. A wasted thug stumbles up to Kohaku, shouting that he won't respect some flashy dandy, and even claims to be a legendary phantasm Tamer, though it's obviously a total lie. Spitting fire, he spins around and insists he's the real deal, claiming that even To herself backed up his story. Kohaku glares at him with pure disgust, demanding to know how a lowlife like him dares to address the guildmaster so casually. His own monster desperately tries to hold him back, grabbing his hand and bowing frantically to beg for mercy. The drunkard gets right in his face and challenges him, declaring that if he's truly a tamer, they should settle this in a duel. He demands a brutal, familiar battle, but Kohaku keeps a straight face and drops a serious reality check. Personal brawls between guild members are banned, but the guy just grins and says he doesn't give a damn. Kohaku's fist tightens as he stands his ground, insisting they follow the law, but the drunkard spots his hesitation and starts mocking him. He taunts Kohaku, asking if he's chicken because he has no monsters, but Kohaku stands firm and refuses to break the guild's code. Suddenly, his eyes widen as a group of phantasms starts closing in on their position. These thugs glared at him with murderous intent, ready to end his life right then and there. Panic sets in as he realizes they aren't listening to a word he says, while his attacker just laughs in his face, mocking his absolute terror. Out of nowhere, a tiny dragon streaks through the air and blasts the guy back with a devastating strike. Claire's eyes light up as she recognizes her familiar crush, leaving our hero stunned that this little creature is actually a legendary To. He stares in awe at the dragon's power just as a powerful woman storms into the hall, demanding to know who dared to cause a scene in her guild. Trembling under her icy gaze, he realizes she's absolutely furious and desperately tries to explain himself before things get even worse. After he spills the whole story, she places her hands on his shoulders with a mysterious look in her eyes. She beams, confirming he truly is a phantasm tamer who fought her familiar to a standstill, and she dares anyone to challenge his right to join the guild. The bully tries to protest, but one sharp look from her sends him spiraling into a panic as he begs for her forgiveness. He grovels, admitting his massive mistake, while Kohaku just shrugs it off, telling her the whole drama wasn't even worth his time. He tries to speak, but To shuts him down, warning that the guild has zero tolerance for petty brawls. He looks at her nervously, wondering if those strict rules actually apply to her, too. She flashes a bone-chilling grin and laughs, telling him he's got a real sense of humor. She disappears into a back room with the man, leaving Saria to thank him for his patience and announce that the trade is finally finished. Now for the best part, the payout. She gestures to a tray overflowing with coins, explaining that his massive haul of herbs is worth 10 silver and 5 copper on top of his reward. He realizes the currency system is tiered, and she confirms the math. 100 copper makes a silver, 100 silver makes a gold, and 100 gold makes a platinum. He quickly calculates that every single kilogram of herbs is worth 10 copper coins. But wait, there's more. His high-quality herbs fetch a premium price, and 40 kilograms of the good stuff nets him a staggering 4 gold coins. His jaw drops in pure shock at the massive payday. With the deal done, she asks if he's ready for another quest, but he turns her down, focused on finding a warm bed for the night. She smiles, telling him she's always there if he needs a helping hand. They head outside where a beaming Claire immediately announces she's starving. Sophia can't believe her ears, reminding her she just inhaled cookies and sweet potatoes, but Claire just gives a cheeky grin. Sophia jokingly calls her a glutton, sparking a loud and fiery outburst from the offended girl. Meanwhile, Kohaku decides it's time to scout the market and get a feel for the local prices on food and supplies. Even though her appetite is legendary, he promises her a massive feast the moment they find a place to stay. She lights up, thinking he's the coolest guy ever, before he turns his attention back to Sophia. He asks to see a map to scout out the most affordable spots in town, and she quickly circles every budget-friendly inn for him. She highlights a place for 50 copper a night with meals included, confirming that this is the standard rate for any traveler. He realizes that a low-level bronze-rank adventurer would go totally broke trying to afford a stay like this. But since breakfast and dinner are part of the deal, he flashes a confident smile and decides to head there immediately. He arrives at the inn and is greeted by a young girl where he immediately asks for a room and offers up 10 silver coins on the spot. The girl's head spins as she struggles with the math, incorrectly guessing 40 nights before her mother steps in to fix the mistake. The mother calls out to Frederica and corrects the stay to 20 nights, offering a warm apology that he graciously accepts. She whips out a notebook to register his name and prepares to show him to his quarters, calling her daughter over to assist. She tells the girl to escort this gentleman straight to room 205. The girl happily leads the way up to the second floor to reveal his brand new room. Sophia reaches out to take his worn-out gear as he offers his thanks, but Claire suspiciously asks if she's going to sniff them again, leading to a tense silence before Sophia finally swears she won't. She explodes with indignation, screaming out in total shock. Ignoring the awkward pause, our hero gazes out the window with a satisfied smirk. He thinks back on everyone who's shown him kindness, just as she flutters right up to his face. She's dying to know his plans for tomorrow, and he reveals he's hitting the iron mines early before hunting down some monsters if time allows. She grins, suggesting he hunts something skeletal like a massive dragon, but he just laughs, reminding her that a bronze rank can't touch a beast like that. Meanwhile, two mysterious figures lurk in the shadows outside the inn, where one turns to Ashwa with a burning question. So the legendary phantasm Tamer actually joined the guild? What's your take on this guy? With a chilling smile, he admits that if this guy is the real deal, he can't wait to meet him. Morning arrives, and Surya points out 2 fresh mining contracts located deep within the Blios and Raizon mines. Kohaku starts rummaging through his gear and drops a bombshell. He's heading straight for the Raizon mine because the iron quality there is legendary, leaving her absolutely stunned. She admits they're desperate for high-grade ore, but warns him that while the Bellows mine is a quick 2-day trip, the trek to Raizon will take a grueling 5 days. He glances at his notes and firmly declares that the extra effort is exactly what's needed. He's determined to pay back the guild for taking him in, while Sophia watches from the shadows, her heart swelling with pure admiration for her master. Saria beams at him, her eyes filled with warmth and pride. She gives a firm nod, fully supporting his bold decision. He rushes back to the inn and immediately calls out for Frederick. Frederick is waiting in the hall and turns around, eager to see how she can assist him. He explains he's heading out on a guild mission tomorrow and needs supplies fast, calculating that since Sophia doesn't eat, he only needs 3 days of rations for himself, Claire, and Fenrir. He holds up a hand and requests 28 full servings, and she happily agrees to the task. The realization suddenly hits her, and she blurted out, asking if he was really leaving. She wonders if he's traveling to some distant land, worried all that food will rot, but he promises his destination isn't far at all. He flashes a confident grin, claiming the food will be devoured in just 3 days, leaving her so stunned she drops her notebook and sprints to find her father. She returns breathless, apologizing for the delay and explaining the extra fee for 28 boxed meals, while he simply nods and asks for the final price. The bill climbs to 16 silver and 80 copper, but her mother steps in with a kind smile, cutting the cost in half to just 8 silver and 40 copper. By the next morning, they've already reached the Ryzen mine. Fenrir's legendary speed turned a massive trek into a quick 2-hour sprint. They confirm the air is safe and the cave is empty. So he turns to Claire with a grin, telling her they're going to need some serious light. Claire conjures a blazing sphere of fire, and the group marches boldly into the dark abyss of the mine. Sufia takes the lead, suddenly coming to a dead stop to announce they've finally arrived. This is the very mining shaft where she's about to unleash her power. He gave the signal to begin, ready for him and Fenrir to start hauling massive amounts of ore into their bags. Without a moment's delay, he grabbed his pickaxe and began smashing into the stone. His hands trembled under the strain as he realized that mining this ore was a brutal, back-breaking task. He turned around and was stunned to see Fenrir absolutely shredding through the rock with effortless speed. He was totally blown away and tempted to let the wolf do everything. But he knew a true master has to pull his own weight. He couldn't look pathetic in front of his team, especially when Claire zipped over to say the 4th bag was already full. They were making incredible progress until Sufia suddenly froze and stared deep into the darkness of the cave. She warned him that she'd detected human life nearby, and they were rapidly approaching their position. These weren't ordinary Tamer's guild members. These guys possessed an overwhelming and dangerous level of power. As he wondered who they were, 3 men emerged from the shadows and realized they weren't alone. Cole swore this place was deserted after scanning it with his detection magic, but he was dead wrong. Someone was already lurking in the shadows. Our hero spots a familiar emblem carved right onto the stranger's chest. It's the mark of the Fighters Guild, but the pitch-black darkness hides its true color. Could it be silver? He suddenly feels a wave of awkwardness wash over him. He realizes he's been staring way too intensely and tries to play it cool. With a friendly grin, the man offers a quick apology for the sudden interruption. They're just here for the iron and hope he's willing to share the haul. He gestures to a massive pile of freshly dug ore and tells them to take whatever they need. But the phantasms are absolutely fuming about this generous offer. 2 guys stare at the massive pile of ore, stunned by its purity, and ask if they can really take all this iron. He flashes a confident grin and tells them to take as much as they want. Turning back with a warm smile, he tells them their help was absolutely vital. He insists on repaying the favor, asking if there's anything at all they can do for him. Kohaku locks eyes with him, sensing that beneath that friendly smile lies a cold, fake mask. He recalls Toe's warning about the hot-headed thugs in the Fighters Guild, and knows he needs to keep his cool. If the situation turns deadly, he's ready to bolt and let his allies handle the fallout. Deciding there's no immediate threat, he keeps his composure and politely turns down their help. Sufia starts prepping for a kill while Claire summons blazing fireballs, screaming that he's ruining her focus. Sensing the tension, Usher tells him to drop by Alex's Fighters Guild if he ever finds himself in a jam. Just as he was leaving, he spun around, dropped his name, and told them that mentioning it would get them through the door. Kohaku gave a final wave, wishing them the best of luck. Suddenly, he collapsed to the floor, his mind racing as he realized, thank goodness that didn't turn into a bloodbath. He was beyond relieved that these guys were actually willing to talk. But even so, his body was still locked in a state of pure, paralyzing tension. One of the familiars shouted out, urging him that they needed to keep moving right now. As Ashore trekked through the dark cavern, he questioned him about his gear. Specifically, if he'd spotted that mysterious emblem on his robes. The clothes? Cole nodded, asking if that was the legendary bronze crest of the Tamer's Guild. He pressed forward, whispering that some dark, unsettling rumors had recently reached his ears. Whispers are spreading about the guild. They say a terrifying phantasm Tamer has officially joined their ranks. Rowan's jaw dropped in shock, demanding to know if phantasm tamers weren't just a myth from an old fairy tale. He dropped a bombshell, claiming he actually takes high-stakes missions for the Tamer's Guild. But something was off. There wasn't a single familiar in sight to back up his story. Since a tamer is useless without a beast, Cole wonders if he's actually a rare phantasm tamer. Rowan questions if now is the perfect time to spill the beans and reveal the truth. Asher shuts it down, insisting they investigate this mysterious situation before making a move. They have no clue how long he'll be sticking around, but since he's already made it this far, they decide to back him up and lend a hand first thing tomorrow morning. Fenrir is tearing up the earth at lightning speed, splashing mud all over Claire, but our hero just smiles because the work is getting done in record time. The beast pauses for praise, and when his master cheers him on, he dives back into the dirt while Claire sighs that he's being spoiled rotten. He explains he just wants them to feel free and natural, but she's clearly got something else on her mind. A deafening roar suddenly cuts her off as a massive wall of dust explodes into the air. Benria screams that the ground has caved in, revealing a bottomless abyss, while Claire just smirks and mocks her. Sophia stands there fuming, her face twisted in pure annoyance as she snaps back a denial. He hauls himself out of the wreckage to stare into the pit, realizing that despite their progress, the real work is only just beginning. Since they've already stripped the iron ore, he decides it's time to dive headfirst into the unknown depths. They plunge into the darkness of a secondary cavern, stumbling into a hall so massive it defies belief. Fenrir's voice echoes through the silence, marveling at the sheer, overwhelming scale of the chamber. Suddenly, his eyes lock onto a colossal, shimmering crystal embedded in the ceiling above. He gasps in total shock at the sight, but Claire senses a foul, lingering presence in the air. A strange stench fills the room, and as Sophia vows to shield her master, Kohaku wonders if he even needs protection. Her face pales as she warns they need to escape immediately, because the moment they stepped inside, they woke something ancient and terrifying. Suddenly, a thunderous boom echoes through the entire chamber. Their eyes snap upward toward the massive crystal embedded in the ceiling. A nightmare begins to claw its way out of the jagged stone. It unleashes a gut-wrenching roar, and he recoils in pure disgust at the sight of the vile abomination. Outside, the fighters feel a surge of dark energy as Rowan realizes the kid actually charged into the danger zone. The entire squad storms into the cavern together, their hearts pounding with dread. Shur is absolutely baffled. How could anyone reach this depth in just 24 hours? They should have seen the signs. That insane amount of iron ore was way too much for a single person to handle. With his familiar leading the charge, they dive into the pit, realizing their fatal mistake in underestimating what could happen in a single day. If he'd accidentally woken those beasts, even his familiar couldn't save him. So he rallied his team with a thunderous shout. He ordered everyone to gear up for war as they stumbled upon a massive creature shrouded in a swirling dust storm. The group stood frozen in pure shock, but Fenrir just stood there with a cocky grin. He laughed that this was a joke, while Claire noted he could probably solo it, but Sophia warned them to stay on guard. She muttered it'd be better if the monster just ate her, sparking a heated argument as she demanded to know what was just said. She coldly asked if she realized spiders absolutely crave insects, forcing our hero to step in and stop the bickering. He spun around, spotted the warriors, and called out to them by name. He was stunned that he hadn't even sensed them approaching until now. Asher told him to stay calm, insisting they weren't looking for a fight. They weren't there for a brawl. Their only target was that monstrous beast lurking in this territory. That very morning, the area was flagged as a lethal danger zone, and it was their job to clear it out. Sufi stepped up and explained that these zones are absolute death traps. Expert hunters use their senses to mark these spots. Think exploding volcanoes, raging rivers, or islands cursed by endless lightning strikes. These are nests for high-level monsters, and he admitted that digging through all that in a single day was just impossible. He bowed low, apologizing for the monster attack and begging for forgiveness, while she scolded the master for spoiling Fenrir way too much. The MC was totally lost, claiming he just overdid the digging and hoped they could just let the whole thing slide. With a sly smirk, he leaned in and asked if he was actually a phantasm Tamer. And realizing the secret was out, he didn't even try to deny it. Whispers were already flying around that a legendary phantasm Tamer had joined the guild, leaving him stunned that the news had traveled so fast. The word was out, and he demanded to know exactly how they managed to track him down. Asher just grinned, playing it cool as he revealed his secret. It was obvious from the moment they met yesterday that Tamer's guild emblem on his jacket gave him away instantly. Not a single familiar was in sight, but a recent discovery had him totally convinced. He'd watched an invisible power crush a giant spider, proving a hidden force was definitely at work. Knowing he couldn't hide the invisible truth any longer, Kohaku realized it was time to spill the beans. "All right, you got me," he admitted, finally coming clean about his secret. He revealed his true identity as a phantasm tamer and a member of the prestigious Toe Guild. Out of nowhere, the man rushed him, grabbing his hands with a look of pure, ecstatic shock. He never imagined he'd cross paths with a legendary phantasm tamer in a place as dangerous as this. The man introduced himself as Usher Krutz, a high-ranking swordsman representing the Fighters Guild. He introduced his allies, the mage Cole and the heavy hitter Rowan, as Kohaku formally greeted the powerful trio. Spotting those elite 8 silver emblems in a death zone meant these guys were high-level monsters, and they were just as stunned. The guy is floored by the mention of a silver emblem, but the hero just chuckles, saying the darkness must be playing tricks on his eyes. He points directly at his badge and flashes a smirk, revealing that these are actually legendary mithril emblems. His heart skips a beat as he realizes he might be standing in the presence of top-tier hunters from the Fighters Guild. He immediately bows his head in shame, but Rowan just laughs it off and tells him there's absolutely no harm done. Since a meeting was already in the cards, he extends his hand and offers him a spot in the prestigious Fighters Guild. They're offering a king's ransom, a yearly contract worth 50 massive platinum coins just for signing up. He's promised a glorious mithril emblem of his own, along with the guarantee of being rewarded for his efforts. Every single mission completed means even more cash in his pocket, leaving Sufia speechless as she turns away. She finally composes herself and lets out a soft smile, right as our protagonist prepares to deliver his final word. He reveals that Toa's guild welcomed him with open arms when he had nothing, and he refuses to abandon the people he owes everything to. Asher stares back with total composure, realizing he's finally found exactly where he belongs. He flashes a confident grin and reassures them that everything is perfect, and that's all that really matters. Oh, and he can't forget to mention that this nightmare is known as the Death Spider. Its entire carcass is forged from pure magic crystal, sparking instant curiosity in his eyes. Is that different from a magic stone? He asks, as Cole explains that those stones are just concentrated mana grown inside the beast. But a magic crystal? That's the raw power unleashed upon death. And a gem this massive is overflowing with insane energy. Rowan smirks, suggesting they loot every single scrap, but our hero wonders, wasn't their only mission just to slay the thing? Asher beams, reminding them the deed is done, and hauling this loot back means a massive payday or a god-tier magic weapon. With the spoils in hand, they finally emerge from the dark depths of the mine. Cole can't help but laugh, teasing him about what a truly devious guy he is. He's testing him, isn't he? Rowan smirks, knowing it's a trap to expose any hidden greed, while Asher realizes he can't hide a single thing from them. But he isn't driven by greed. He puts his whole heart into everything he does, proving that he's the real deal. They shadow his every move, questioning what he'd do if he actually accepted, since stealing members from other guilds is a massive taboo, right? He looks deep in thought, pondering the chaos that would unfold if he actually gave them a yes. He jokes that he'd have to grovel at the guildmaster's feet just to make it happen, making Cole roar with laughter at his sudden obsession. He admits it's true. He'd give anything just to witness that legendary strength from the front row. Elsewhere, Claire grills Kohaku on his decision, but he scoffs at the idea of working for cash, leaving her desperate to know his true goal. He pauses as the powerful memory of his father's voice flashes through his mind. With total conviction, he declares that his only path is to reach the pinnacle of strength. He strives to be a warrior who is brave, just, and honest to the core. He finally makes it back to the guild and calls out for Saria, catching her completely off guard. She sprints toward him, screaming to know if he's hurt, leaving him totally stunned by her sudden outburst. She shouts that a terrifying demon was spotted in the mines 2 days ago, and the mithril hunter guilds were deployed to kill it. Immediately, he realizes she's talking about the Asher group. Wiping away her tears, she cries out that he's been gone for 3 whole days, and the crushing weight of worry was almost too much to bear. She feared he'd run straight into that demon, desperately hoping he turned back early. But when he looks away guiltily, her expression turns dead serious as she demands to know what he's hiding. Back in the office, he spills the truth, and she gasps in disbelief, asking if he really took down the legendary Death Spider in the danger zone. With a smirk, he admits it wasn't just him. It was a combined effort from every single one of them. Her eyes light up with pure excitement as she asks if he pulled it off using his incredible phantasms. Suddenly, she slams her fist onto the desk, shouting that none of this matters and it's not her problem to deal with. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she demands that he shuts up and listens to exactly what she has to say. She's relieved he's safe. But being a hunter means living with a target on your back and death as your shadow. To survive this brutal life, you've got to push your skills past the breaking point. You need a razor-sharp sense for danger and the ability to think fast when the pressure is on. When your life is on the line, don't be a hero. Just run, because you're the only one who can save yourself. She stops herself, apologizing for the outburst as she shuts her eyes tight. The truth is, she's just sick and tired of seeing hunters lose their lives. He speaks her name softly, flashing a warm smile that melts the tension. But that kindness is too much, and she suddenly bursts into uncontrollable tears. He's caught completely off guard, frantically calling her name as he tries to comfort her. She finally pulls it together and pivots back to the deal. If he wants that magic weapon, he can grab the materials and they'll handle the rest. He steps up to the bag and reveals he's brought iron ore and magic crystals, leaving her absolutely stunned as he flashes a confident grin. He explains that while the iron was requested, these rare magic crystals were ripped straight from the corpse of a deadly death spider. Her jaw drops as she examines the loot, realizing every single gem is top-tier quality, and she wonders if he's secretly a legendary master. Since the haul is massive, she needs 2 hours for a full appraisal, so he agrees to head out and explore while she works. Sufi points toward the horizon and tells him that the town of Flameln lies just to the south. That town is home to Zacchus, the greatest blacksmith in the entire kingdom, and our hero is hyped to see what this legend can do. She explains to the master that a magic weapon is a specialized tool designed to channel and concentrate raw arcane power. Imagine a sword that launches fireballs without costing a drop of mana. But first, he has to find the perfect weapon to match his soul. He's overwhelmed by the massive selection of gear, but she's already crunched the numbers on his stats and explosive growth rate. After analyzing everything, she's convinced that a one-handed sword is the absolute best choice for his fighting style. A little while later, they arrive at the bustling forge town. Claire beams with excitement, absolutely loving the vibrant energy of the crowded streets. Our hero feels a sudden rush of power as they wonder why a massive crowd is gathering nearby. As they push through the crowd, Sufiha calls out to the master. She points out a legendary magic weapon gleaming in the light. Off to the side, a mysterious warrior stands tall, gripping a massive blade. He stands poised and ready before a giant solid log. With a look of pure determination, he hoists the sword high above his head. Letting out a thunderous battle cry, he prepares to unleash a devastating strike. He brings the blade down with an explosion of raw, overwhelming power. The log crashes to the dirt and bursts into flames right before his eyes. He stares in awe, realizing he scorched the wood without a single drop of mana. This magic weapon is absolutely insane. Grinning ear to ear, he shouts how cool it is, but Claire snaps back that she could do that in her sleep. Sophia calmly roasts her, saying if a firebender couldn't manage that, she'd be as useless as a common fly. As the girls start bickering, Kohaku rushes in to break it up, urging them to quit stalling and get to Zaku's place. They reach the workshop, and a man nearby spins around with a look of pure shock. He can't believe his ears. Did this brat really just mention the legendary Zaku? They pull up to a tiny, humble shack as our hero speaks up. So, this is the workshop? Claire asks, her face falling as she judges the place's pathetic appearance. It looks like a total wreck, but he just smiles, telling her she's missing the hidden charm in this rugged aesthetic. He pounds on the door, but only silence answers, leaving her wondering if the man is even home. Sufia remains eerily calm, doubling down on her gut feeling that someone is definitely watching them. Seeing the door is unlocked, he steps inside and apologizes for the intrusion while asking to order a new weapon. Suddenly, an object screams through the air and crashes into the wall right next to his head. His blood runs cold when he realizes it's a heavy hammer buried deep in the wood. Zaka barks out a demand to know who he is, and the MC whips around to face him. He finds the man sitting at a table, clutching a bottle with a look of pure annoyance. Our hero stands tall, announcing his name and his rank within the Tamer's Guild. He explains he's looking for a weapon, but the man slams his bottle down and mockingly asks if this kid is actually a hunter. He confirms his rank, explaining that's exactly why he's here, but he doesn't even have time to finish his sentence before the man snaps at him to shut his mouth in total disgust. He locked eyes with the man and demanded to know if this was Zakus, and the answer was a chilling yes. He tried to start a conversation, but the man cut him off instantly, shouting that he had to get home right now. Suddenly, he snatched a blade off the table and spat out that he loathed hunters with a burning passion. With pure hatred in his eyes, he began hurling deadly weapons straight at him and Kohaku. Terrified, Kohaku bolted out of the house as fast as his legs could carry him. He slammed the door shut just as Sufia stepped up to unleash her power. She instantly conjured a shimmering barrier to shield them from the assault. Claire was absolutely fuming, screaming at the top of her lungs about what was wrong with that lunatic. She couldn't believe how incredibly disrespectful he was as she rushed over to check on her master. She begged to know if he was hurt, but he just slumped to the ground and gave a weak nod. She stares at him in total disbelief, insisting that her master needs to keep his head held high. They can't waste another second on that guy when a far superior blacksmith is out there, unless she should just rip his throat out instead. He quickly shuts down the violent idea and makes his way to a rowdy tavern in the city of Fall Melm. They peer through the glass, wondering if he's truly desperate for that man's steel. But the situation looks completely hopeless. That blacksmith is supposedly the greatest in the entire kingdom, leaving our hero sobbing into his drink at the bar. As he drowns his sorrows and wonders why hunters are so hated, A mysterious stranger asks if he was looking for Zakas. The man calls him out, noting that he's only getting wasted because he got rejected by the master smith. He tells him not to take it personally, but to lose hope instead, before introducing himself as the enigmatic Kotori. He acknowledges the smith's reputation, but asks with a smirk, would a real master ever brag that his blade is the absolute best? If that were true, a single sword would be worth a literal fortune in platinum. A revelation that leaves our hero absolutely stunned. He scowled, clearly annoyed, and demanded to know if there was anywhere else in town to score a decent blade. The truth was brutal. The old man had absolutely crushed every single rival until he was the only one left standing. His jaw dropped in pure shock as he realized the old man had single-handedly wiped out the entire market. Even the elite, high-end shops were gone, leaving you wondering, how on earth did he pull that off? The man rubbed his fingers together, signaling for a bribe, and without missing a beat, a gold coin was tossed his way. Kotori pocketed the gold and whispered that this secret was for his ears only, starting with the fact that the old man once had a son. When asked about his age, he revealed he was 20, the exact same age Zakas's son was when tragedy struck and he lost his life. It all went down about 3 years ago, involving his son Dakas, who had just earned a legendary title. At just 13, Dakas was blessed with the Divine Swordsman class and rose through the ranks of the elite fighting guild. But the old man was incredibly stubborn and hated the idea of his son becoming a hunter from day one. He stared him down and asked if it was because hunting is a death sentence, and he admitted they fought about it every single night. Their clashes never ended, until one day his son finally reached his breaking point and stormed out of the house forever. From that moment on, Zaka became obsessed, scouring every single newspaper the guild released. He was desperately searching for one thing: the grim lists of those who didn't make it back alive. He lived in constant terror until the day his worst nightmare finally became a reality. It was all over when Kotori revealed the crushing truth. They brought his cold body home the very next morning. But here's the real kicker. He spotted a lethal sword wound carved right into the flesh. This meant his son wasn't killed by a monster, but was butchered by a fellow human being. As Zaka examined the strike, his heart sank. That wound was made by a blade he forged with his own hands. For a master blacksmith, there is no greater sin than crafting a weapon used to slaughter the innocent. From this moment on, the master of oblique strikes can identify any weapon with a single glance. He saw the truth instantly. There was no hiding the weapon used in that attack.
He begged for a surrender because his own son had joined the hunters, and then tragedy struck.
A hunter slaughtered his boy, but the worst part? He's convinced he's the one who dealt the killing blow. Believing he murdered his own flesh and blood, he completely abandoned his life's work in despair. Deep in the forest with the phantasms, Claire questioned the truth. But our hero could only promise answers once they hit the guild. She recalled that nice guy with a suspicious look, certain he was hiding crucial secrets. He's a registered hunter, and despite the danger, his party reached that deadly mine in record time. He arrived at the Tamer's guild, but the payout was so massive they had to move to a private room to handle the gold. She presented a fortune, a platinum coin and 80 gold pieces, all for 9 kilos of top-tier iron, leaving him absolutely stunned. She explains that while basic iron is cheap, high-grade ore costs a staggering 20 silver per kilo, just as a worker hauls out a second tray. Kohaku's jaw drops at the sight of the new tray, and after a quick, knowing nod, he realizes the stakes just went up. With a bright smile, she reveals this is the massive payout for the magic crystals, which go for a full gold coin per kilo. For 300 kilos of crystals, she hands him 3 legendary platinum coins and his quest reward, bagging the fortune as he stares in total disbelief. He shoves the heavy loot into his pack, his mind spinning as he wonders how he'll ever spend all this gold. But there's no time for that now. The Fighters Guild is only a 5-minute sprint away. He gives a quick bow, shouts his thanks, and bolts out the door like a lightning bolt. The worker clutches a mysterious item while she watches him leave with a worried look, shouting that she isn't even finished yet. But it's too late. Our hero has already reached the entrance of the legendary Fighters Guild. A highly skilled fighter shoots him a look of pure disgust, snapping that he finally arrived, but the overwhelming stench of booze and stale smoke hit him before he even stepped inside. Sufia quickly raised her hand, casting a magic barrier to block out that disgusting odor. After thanking her, he spotted 2 thugs screaming at each other, demanding to know where he thought he was going. "You walked right into it, you moron!" he barked, staring at the chaos while wondering what to do next. Is Asher actually in this dump? Suddenly, a mysterious cloaked figure slinks up to him with a question. "You're new, aren't you? 1 hit of this and you'll be in paradise for just 20 gold. But Sufia calls him out. revealing it's just plain sugar and wondering if she should just obliterate the scammer. He shuts the dealer down instantly, shouting at the top of his lungs that he's not interested. Nearby thugs lock eyes on him, pointing a finger and shouting that he's a member of the Tamer's guild. Panic starts to set in as our hero rushes toward the guild building, his mind racing with dread. He has to find Asher fast or he's dead meat. Step 1 is reaching the front desk to demand a summons. A rowdy crowd swarms him, mocking the gentle bronze Tamer who just wandered into their territory. They sneer, asking if he's lost or just walked into the wrong guild, but before he can speak, a heavy hand slams onto his shoulder. The thug offers to escort him home, but only if he hands over every single item in that bag as a little thank you gift. He even demands the clothes off his back, while Kohaku looks back with a look of pure terror. He's gripped by a worried expression, realizing this situation is about to end in a total disaster. Claire's fuming and ready to burn them alive, while Sufia coolly suggests that lopping off their heads would be way faster. If he doesn't shut this down immediately, he'll be branded a criminal for starting a bloodbath in the middle of the guild. He rips himself away and insists he's fine. But the thug just smirks and tells him not to be so shocked. The thug tells him not to be shy as Kohaku explains he's only here on business, but they just laugh in his face. They howl with laughter, jeering at the weakling and wondering. The thug yanks his hair back, snarling that hanging out with a lowly bronze Tamer is a total disgrace to the battle guild. Panic sets in, but he spins around the moment Asher's cold voice rings out, calling the bully a complete moron. Asher glares at them with lethal intensity, declaring that this person is his highly honored guest. Since they've chosen to harass his friend, they better have a damn good excuse for their actions. The bullies freeze in terror, stammering that they had absolutely no idea he was a VIP. With a piercing gaze, he demands to know if they're so bored that they have to pick on everyone they cross paths with. He strides over to our hero and firmly plants a hand on his shoulder. With a warm, reassuring smile, he breaks the tension and speaks. He tells him how thrilled he is to see him and thanks him for finally dropping by. Tears well up in our hero's eyes as he realizes just how lucky he is to have met such an incredible person. Cole spat out the truth. The Fighters Guild had gone soft and their skills were plummeting. Ashua ordered him to report this to the master immediately for a full roster check, and the boy nodded in firm agreement. Ashua whirled toward our hero, demanding to know if he was finally joining up, but the protagonist revealed he was only there for the truth. He began pressing them for intel on Dacus, a legendary hunter who met a tragic end years ago. Ashua, Cole, and Rowan hung on his every word, their faces turning dead serious. Sensing the gravity of the situation, the leader barked at Cole to throw up a soundproof barrier right now. The boy snapped to it, sealing the room tight as the leader set down his tea with a heavy sigh. "I see," the leader muttered, staring out the window as he realized the truth behind Dacus's death had finally surfaced. Kohaku confirmed it, desperate to uncover the kind of man his father truly was. Ashua pondered the mystery, wondering what kind of legend Dacus would have become if he'd actually survived. The MC admits the guy was a total beast, easily capable of reaching the elite orichalcum rank. Joshua agrees, describing him as a beloved light to everyone, but admits the man seemed desperately rushed, leaving the MC stunned. Rowan saw it too. The guy was obsessed with power, even spending his rare breaks grinding and mining bronze ore. A heavy silence grips the room before Ashua gazes out the window and drops a chilling question. Could a man that noble truly be stabbed in the back by his own allies? Kohaku reads his mind, asking if that's the doubt haunting him, and our hero can only nod in shock. The leader reveals the truth. It all went down when Daku dispatched a squad to wipe out a mysterious organization. An organization? The boy gasps, only for the leader to name them. The Burning Lotus Clan, a name he's never even heard. Our hero quickly apologizes, admitting this dangerous group is a complete mystery to him. Ashua brushes it off, explaining that these villains lurk in the darkest shadows, completely invisible to the public eye. This twisted clan worships fire spirits like gods, and every month they snatch innocent children to burn them alive in a sick, sacred ritual. The hero's phantasms are absolutely stunned by the horror, with Sufi screaming out in total disbelief. Claire's blood boils with pure rage at the news, especially when she's told she needs to surrender. She snaps back with pure indignation, declaring that she is the one and only true fire spirit. There is no way she'd ever accept such a barbaric sacrifice, and the protagonist calmly reassures her that he knows her heart. She'd never stand for this cruelty, meaning this clan is acting on their own twisted desires, so he turns to Ashua for the truth. He demands to know if the Blazing Lotus clan was finally wiped out. But the leader reveals the shocking news. They're still alive. They escaped? The protagonist is completely floored, but before he can even get a word out, Ashua cuts him off. There's no way Dacus could have failed this mission. And while it looks like a betrayal, the reality is much darker. Every single person standing by his side on that mission was actually a secret member of that murderous cult. Our hero stood there, completely stunned by the group's revelation as Ashua continued. He detailed the brutal injuries, 4 coward strikes to the back and 1 massive lethal slash across the chest that ended it all. The MC demanded to know when they identified the Blazing Lotus clan, and the leader admitted it took 6 long months to uncover the truth. Our protagonist stared at the ground in a cold sweat, his mind racing with this heavy information. Ashua stepped forward, resting a steadying hand on his shoulder to comfort him. He confessed that was the end of their intel, but when asked for more questions, the MC just shoved his drink aside. With nothing left to ask, he thanked them for the lead and stormed out of the guild hall. As he walked, he realized Zakis must have heard a twisted version of the story before the Blazing Lotus clan was even implicated. The guild likely tried to tell him the truth, but he was in such a state that he couldn't hear a single word. This massive lie festered for years, fueling his burning hatred for every single hunter. Sufia trailed behind her master like a shadow, questioning if he was truly prepared to reveal every dark secret to Zakis. The MC shot her a thoughtful look, admitting that to pull this off, she'd have to do something impossible. She'd have to rewrite history itself. She'd have to literally reverse the past. And as the MC agreed, Phantasm revealed that the path ahead was treacherous. There was absolutely no easy way out of this mess. But one final, desperate option remained. A short while later, Kohaku and his Phantasms trekked into the cursed deadlands of Fullreed, deep within the southern reaches of the Brumundian kingdom. Suddenly, a horde of rotting undead swarmed them, making Claire scream in terror as Fenrir mocked her fear. Sophia warned that these monsters are driven by a primal urge to slaughter the living, while a frustrated Claire barked at her to stop staring and start fighting. Sophia smirked, explaining that these ghouls have 2 major weaknesses: holy light and magical fire. Even a tiny flame could keep them at bay. Claire fumed at the comparison. But before she could snap back, the doll warned that the enemy was already upon them. She instantly unleashed her devastating Scarlet Flame skill, incinerating the undead into nothing but ash. Our hero was absolutely floored by her cold, lethal efficiency. He offered his thanks while Fenrir howled in pure awe, but the spirit just blushed, acting all humble. "It was nothing," she insisted, as the MC signaled Sufia to dive toward the clearing below. Kohaku's instincts screamed in warning, and the doll confirmed his worst fears. They'd finally found the undead lord. This monster was the Lich, a nightmare hovering in midair and radiating a suffocating dark energy. The MC asked if the rumors of his immortality were true, but Sufia reminded him that every legend has a breaking point. She revealed his fatal flaw, claiming Fenrir could end him in a heartbeat, and the wolf was more than ready to hunt. Suddenly it clicked. The Stone of the Dead was the ultimate key to finishing this fight. Sufia gave the green light, and our hero braced himself on Fenrir's back, ready for the chaos to begin. Kohaku knew he might look like a meddling hypocrite, but he didn't care. He was seeing this through to the end. He refused to leave the suffering man behind and ordered his wolf to soar into the fray. They closed the distance in a heartbeat, flanking the deadly Lich from its blind spot. Sufia promises that Fenrir can handle it, but our hero is still hunting for a weakness against bones harder than steel. That skull is 3 times harder than the rest, but the doll points to the head, explaining this Lich was once a fallen mage. He was a sage who sought immortality, but if they destroy his head, he'll perish, leaving the MC absolutely stunned. Fenrir explodes from cover, pins the Lich to the dirt, and rips its head clean off in one brutal motion. The wolf licks his chops and prepares to feast, leaving our hero wondering why his companion is acting so savage. Sufi senses the tension while the wolf looks on in confusion as the Lich's body finally crumbles into nothing. Fenrir points a paw at the pathetic pile of ash left behind, while the MC stands there reeling from his summon's cold efficiency. He shudders at the thought of those terrifying jaws, finally calming down and realizing how lucky he is to have Fenrir on his side. Fenrir stands right there, thanking the wolf, while the Phantasm lets out a bashful smile just as Kohaku reaches out to. After a quick pat on the muzzle, Sufia dives into the smoldering ashes, scavenging for a prize before turning back to her master. "Found it! The Stone of the Dead!" The doll reveals her prize, leaving the protagonist stunned as he asks if this is truly the legendary gem. She confirms it, dropping the cold stone into his hand, and he grips it tight, offering a heartfelt thanks to his loyal crew. He gazes up at the shimmering moon and declares, "All right, everyone, it's time to find Jaku." When the group finally tracks down the blacksmith, they find him standing in a heavy, haunting silence over his son's grave. A vase of fresh flowers rests against the cold stone, and that's when Zaku finally turns around. He whips around with a snarl, demanding to know exactly what the protagonist thinks he's doing there.
Kohaku speaks up, telling him he heard about the tragedy and wants to offer his deepest condolences.
The man's rage boils over as he screams at him to shut up, blaming the hunters for everything that went wrong. Our hero steps up to settle the score, but Zakus just glares at him with pure contempt and tells him to get lost. Claire panics, sensing the blacksmith has completely snapped. But the MC declares that nobody is leaving until this is finished. He marches straight toward Zakus, feeling a haunting connection to the man's soul-crushing agony. The blacksmith explodes with a devastating punch to the jaw, screaming at the top of his lungs. "How dare you pretend to understand me?" he roars, as the MC staggers back while his allies watch in horror. They're ready to jump into the fray, but the blacksmith's grief turns into a terrifying outburst. "Did you watch your son die? Do you know my pain?" Zakus screams, grabbing the MC and shaking him with violent force. He pulls back for another lethal blow, cursing the very ground they stand on. He bellows that the hunters abandoned his son to die and that no one knows the hell he's been through. Suddenly, Kohaku intercepts the strike, staring him down with an icy gaze as the truth finally clicks. If he truly believed hunters were cold-blooded killers, he would have blamed them for his son's death long ago. Deep down, he already knows the truth. It wasn't a hunter who took his son's life. The blacksmith stares at the protagonist, his eyes wide with pure shock. His fist relaxes as he looks away, muttering that hunters are just pathetic losers, while a painful memory of his son flashes before his eyes. He remembers handing a masterpiece blade to Asher, begging him to give it to his son Dachus so the boy would have a weapon worthy of a true swordsman. He asked Asher to take the credit for the gift, but now he snaps back to reality, snarling that his son died because he was surrounded by absolute trash. The protagonist doesn't back down, admitting that yeah, there are definitely some rotten hunters out there. But hunters are not scum! The MC roars directly into the man's face, leaving every hunter in the room completely speechless. He recalls Dachus telling him with total conviction that being a swordsman wasn't just a choice. It was his destiny. He refused to be chained down as a blacksmith, spitting in the face of the world's laws to follow his own path. Zakus promised that with his training, the boy would become a master blacksmith and never have to risk his life again. Dachus snapped back in defiance, but the blacksmith growled that he was sick and tired of dealing with such trash. He barked at the boy to get to the workshop and start working, but Dachus just stared back in total silence. Suddenly, the boy exploded with a flat-out refusal, leaving Zakus wondering what on earth had gotten into him. His son stood tall and declared they weren't trash, and looking at the protagonist, the blacksmith saw that same fire in his eyes. He realized the boy's conviction matched Kohaku's perfectly, as the protagonist turned back to him to deliver a message. He mentioned how much everyone adored his son, claiming the boy could have reached the legendary mithril rank if he were still alive. The boy was just too desperate for power, and when the confused blacksmith asked why, the hero simply asked how he could possibly know. "You're right, it's still a mystery," the MC noted, before reaching into his pocket to reveal a hidden treasure. He revealed Sufya's discovery, the Stone of the Dead, and explained that if a grieving man grips it tight in his fist, even if they're long gone, he can rip a soul back from the afterlife for one final conversation. This was his shot to say what he needed to his son, yet the blacksmith hesitated, staring at the relic in fear. He was drowning in regret since Dachus passed, desperate for just one more chance to make things right. Was this really happening? His hands trembled as they moved toward the artifact by pure instinct. He lunged forward, grabbing the glowing stone straight out of the protagonist's hands. Zakus's mind spiraled with hope and fear, his fists clenching so hard they shook. In a flash, the energy exploded, and a spectral soul materialized right in front of the tombstone. It was his son. As the boy looked at him, Zakus stood paralyzed, his eyes wide with disbelief at the miracle before him. His heart felt like it stopped, and he crashed to the dirt right at Dachus's feet. He sobbed and pleaded for forgiveness, screaming that he should have listened, should have been there, and should have protected him. Dachus steps forward and places a steady, comforting hand on his father's shoulder. He confesses that he chose this dangerous path himself and even faced death, pleading for his father's forgiveness. Tears stream down Zakus's face as he begs his son to stop, shouting that none of this was his fault. He desperately asks for the truth. What could have possibly driven him to become a swordsman? Dachus looks him in the eye and admits he always idolized his father's legendary strength and power. Every weapon his father forged was a masterpiece, but Dachus's true destiny was to master the blade itself. He realized that no matter how hard he pushed himself, he could never reach his father's level of greatness. His allies and Zakas stand there in total shock, hanging onto every single word of this revelation. The blacksmith's son reveals his master plan to use his unique gifts to finally support his father. Forging these magic swords demands the rarest iron and mana stones to create the ultimate unbeatable weapon. Rowan's words finally clicked in the hero's mind. That's exactly why he was out there mining the ore with his own 2 hands. Everything fell into place. With his rank skyrocketing, Dacus could dive into the deadliest zones to harvest the rarest materials imaginable. He held onto a burning ambition that his father would take those treasures and forge a blade that would leave the entire world in awe. Suddenly, he produced a mysterious bundle containing a masterfully crafted sheath and locked eyes with our hero to demand his name. Caught completely off guard, the MC introduced himself, and the boy gave a sharp nod as if everything had finally fallen into place. He stepped forward, swallowing his pride to ask for a massive favor. Could the MC actually help him turn his impossible dream into a reality? The doll whispered that the man's spirit could actually see them, and as the MC stood there baffled, the man grinned, confirming the legendary phantasm Tamer was real. Claire was ecstatic over their insane luck since their dream sword was finally within reach, but while Fenrir cheered for the weapon, the MC was left wondering how things got so out of hand. The blacksmith stood frozen in total shock, unable to believe he was standing right in front of a real-life phantasm Tamer. Zakas turned his gaze toward his son, standing tall by his side as the sheer weight of the moment settled over them both. He pivots toward our hero, pleading for the exact same favor. He begs the protagonist to finally turn their impossible dream into a reality. He drops into a deep, respectful bow right before our main character. Dacus gasps in total shock, realizing that everything is finally going to be all right. Both father and son lock eyes with the MC, and Kohaku vows to help them reach their goal. They offer their deepest thanks, but suddenly, Dacus's hands start fading into nothingness. With a heavy heart, he realizes his time is up, but he's just grateful they shared this final moment. He pours out his gratitude to our hero, but Kohaku insists that no thanks are necessary. Dacus turns his gaze toward his father one last time. He begs his father to live a long, fulfilling life. He vanished into nothingness, leaving Zaka staring desperately at the empty space where his son's spirit once flickered. The blacksmith hung his head in shame, apologizing for striking the hero, but Kohaku quickly brushed it off. He asked to keep things casual and just use his first name, prompting Zakas to rub the back of his head and agree. Suddenly, a voice calls out to our hero, and he's shocked to see Oshawa and Rowan Cole standing there holding flowers. Seeing them all gathered, he asks if something went wrong, but Rowan fires back that they were about to ask him the same thing. The blacksmith rests a heavy hand on our hero's shoulder, explaining that they make this pilgrimage every single year on this very day. Today marks the grim anniversary of his son's death, and as he gazes at the cold gravestone, his heart sinks. He then turns toward the hunters and offers his sincere thanks for making the journey. The boys are stunned as Zakas admits he was incredibly rude to them, even after everything they'd done to help. Ashua is completely baffled by the apology, but the man confesses he finally knows they aren't to blame for his son's fate. Zakas clung to his bitter grudge, remembering how Asha begged for forgiveness at the grave, but he just screamed that they had utterly failed his son. They had every chance to save him from the start. But then, the blacksmith did the unthinkable and offered a sincere apology. The hunters were floored as the man paused, then poured his heart out, thanking them from the bottom of his soul for protecting his boy. As the blacksmith bowed deeply to his son's allies, the hunters struggled to hold back their tears at the emotional display. Zakas revealed that a strange object let him speak to his son again, and Cole's eyes widened in shock. It was the legendary Stone of the Dead. When asked where he found such a relic, the blacksmith pointed to our hero, prompting a stunned Rowan to ask if he'd slain the Lich, though the MC humbly gave his team the credit. Rowan laughed, itching to test their power, but as the blacksmith spoke with the others, Cole was left wondering just how strong this phantasm Tamer really is. Zakas invited them to his workshop, but since Ashua had to report to the guild, the blacksmith simply nodded and beckoned our hero to follow him. Kohaku said his goodbyes and followed Zakas, who threw a fatherly arm around him, chatting away with more energy than ever before. Ashua smiled, realizing he hadn't seen the man this full of life in years, and Cole couldn't help but agree that the change was truly incredible. Their leader? The boy stared back in total confusion, wondering what on earth he was talking about until Cole finally spoke. He looked like a man who'd found true salvation, a transformation that Ashua couldn't help but notice. He watched with a heavy gaze as the blacksmith and our hero disappeared into the distance. It wasn't long before Zakus and Kohaku finally pulled up to the workshop. "So this is the shop," our hero remarked, as the man apologized for the mountain of dust and promised to clean it up fast. Sufia turned to her master, ready to give it her all, while Zakas focused on his next move. The blacksmith tenderly stroked his tools, apologizing for neglecting them, just as our hero prepared to make a big request. He planned to let his familiars handle the cleaning, since one of them was an absolute pro at this kind of work. "You're a total lifesaver!" the man shouted to Sufia, who bowed and took charge. But his excitement vanished as he suddenly froze in confusion. He realized he'd blown all his iron and crystals on booze, but as he scrambled through the boxes, our hero prepared a massive surprise. He slammed the box of rare materials down, leaving the blacksmith breathless as he marveled at the pure magic pulsing from the minerals. The perfect ingredients for a legendary blade. Fenrir beamed with pride at the high praise, while our hero felt a surge of relief that their hard work to gather these treasures finally paid off. Recalling his son's deepest wish, the blacksmith turned to our protagonist with a heavy request. He begged for help to make that dream a reality, locking eyes with Kohaku to deliver his answer. He swore he would forge a masterpiece so powerful it would literally rewrite the pages of history. Hearing those bold words sent a wave of pure excitement through our hero. The blacksmith insisted they start planning immediately, cracking open his private cellar to ask if our hero was ready for a drink. Kohaku grinned, admitting he could definitely handle a glass or two. Still a bit shocked, he asked if they really planned to hammer out all the details while throwing back drinks. The blacksmith just laughed, declaring that a monumental day like this deserved a massive celebration. He's desperately hoping his son can find it in his heart to forgive him for this. Their eyes meet, and our hero gives a firm nod of agreement. Meanwhile, Oshawa is busy reporting every single detail of the chaos. He delivers the news to his master, the legendary Fighters Guild leader, Leon Leberdo. This means Zakis is finally back at the forge, ready to create once again. Leon sighs in relief, praising his assistant for an incredible job after being worried sick. But Oshawa stops him, revealing he wasn't the savior, leaving Leon stunned as he gasps, "Could it be Kohaku?" The boy confirms it, leaving Leon shocked that a kid took down a lich and a deadly spider, both mithril-rank threats. Oshawa swears it's the truth, but Leon stares him down, struggling to believe such an insane claim. The guildmaster decides they're paying this kid a visit immediately, and Oshawa bows in total obedience. Once the boy departs, Leon gazes at the shimmering moon, his mind racing with possibilities. Is it possible? Could the legendary Tamer actually be more than just a myth? Leon snatches a dusty tome titled The Heroic Saga from the shelf. At dawn, our hero leaves everything in the blacksmith's hands, and the man gives a confident nod. Suddenly, the furnace erupts in flames as Claire unleashes a powerful spell. This eternal fire can never be quenched, and Claire grants him her divine strength to see his true potential. The blacksmith gasps in shock as Claire gifts him the fire fairy, her warm smile radiating as she floats above. Zakus ties his headband tight, his heart set on Kohaku for finally shattering all his inner doubts. He finally untangled a mess that seemed impossible to fix before slamming the metal onto the glowing coals. The blacksmith vows right then and there to repay our hero for everything he's done. The entire town stood frozen in absolute awe of everything he'd accomplished for them. A wave of shock washed over the crowd as a legendary familiar sound echoed through the streets. Every merchant and craftsman in the district stopped dead in their tracks, eyes wide with disbelief. Could it be? Zakas was back at the anvil, his hammer striking with that unmistakable rhythmic roar. That magnificent ring filled the air while Kotor sat in his shop, cursing under his breath as he glared at his own inferior blade. He grumbled that Zakas was finally showing his face after being late for so long. Days later at the inn, Sufia dropped the bombshell that the sword was finished, making our hero snap his notebook shut in pure excitement. The doll handed over the blacksmith's letter, and Kohaku exploded with joy. This was the moment he'd been dreaming of. He'd already been grinding his one-handed sword skills, so when Sufia asked to head out immediately, he didn't hesitate for a second. As he sprinted toward the workshop, his heart pounded with anticipation until he finally burst through the door to see if his weapon was complete. There it was, the legendary blade resting on the table, and our hero stared in awe, declaring it the greatest weapon in existence. He eagerly asked Zaka if he could take it for a spin, and the blacksmith grinned, asking the MC for his honest thoughts. As he lifted the steel, his eyes widened at how impossibly light it felt in his hands. "It's like holding air!" he gasped, while the blacksmith let out a proud, hearty chuckle. Zaka had poured everything into this build, knowing a tamer needs a specialized tool since they aren't built like heavy-hitting warriors. Deeply moved that this was made specifically for him, the MC listened as Zakus urged him to finally draw the steel. The moment Kohaku unsheathed the weapon, he was absolutely blown away by its sheer perfection. His companions were just as stunned, their jaws dropping at the sight of such a magnificent masterpiece. Claire gushed over its elegance while Fenrir marveled at the deep blue steel, leaving Sufia beaming with pure joy. "Is this a magic sword? What kind of powers does it have?" he asked. But Saku simply replied that it has the power to cut, leaving our hero totally confused. The blacksmith chuckles, telling him that actions speak louder than words as he slams a heavy stone onto the table. He commands our hero to grip the blade and focus every ounce of his being on that stone, while the boy starts breaking a cold sweat. He gingerly lifts the weapon and hovers the edge over the rock, his eyes widening as a mysterious red line suddenly flickers into view. The smith asks if he sees it, then tells him to slice right along that mark, and our hero doesn't hesitate for a second. He carves through the solid rock like it's soft butter, and his jaw hits the floor in pure, unadulterated shock. "This sharpness is unreal!" he screams, barely using any force at all. But Zakus just grins, saying the edge is only the tip of the iceberg. When he grips this sword, it exposes the enemy's fatal flaw, literally showing him exactly where he needs to strike. If he hits that mark, the toughest steel, heavy armor, or even legendary dragon scales will shatter like glass. Our hero stares in total disbelief, looking from the blade to the sliced stone and back again, before finally speaking up. He asks the man if this incredible weapon has a name, and Zakus slowly lowers his head to respond. Legend tells of a god-tier weapon forged in the fires of ancient times, a divine blade with the mystical power to reveal every hidden truth. Its name was Fragara, and that is exactly what he'll call his new steel. Our hero grips the hilt, whispering the name with pure devotion before showering the smith with gratitude. Tears nearly spill over, but Zakus brushes it off as friendship before asking for one massive favor. The MC waits eagerly as Zakus clenches his fist and tells him to announce his grand return. With a deep, respectful bow, our hero swears he'll do whatever it takes to repay this incredible gift. Zakus flashes a massive grin, throws an arm around Kohaku, and sends him off with a roar of good luck. He leans in to whisper a final secret, and our hero gives a sharp nod of understanding. Zakus gives one last encouraging smile and tells him to let his legend finally unfold. Let his name shake the very foundations of the world. Our hero gazes at him with pure respect and offers his deepest thanks to the master smith. After one last nod to the blacksmith, the crew finally reaches the gates of the Tamer's guild. Fenrir flashes a wide grin, asking if he's finally ready to take on some real work and jump into the fray, and our hero doesn't hesitate to say yes. This is his very first true weapon, a blade he's finally earned, and he grips the sheath tightly as he speaks. Even though bronze-rank hunters rarely get the big jobs, he's determined to master this blade as fast as humanly possible. As they pull up to the guild, our hero is stunned to see a massive, restless crowd swarming the entrance. He rushes over to the guys nearby to find out what's happening, only to hear that Saria has been acting completely drained, and Kohaku can't believe his ears as she keeps muttering under her breath. It's like she's whispering to ghosts. And the guy explains that all she does lately is let out these deep, heavy sighs. The other tamers swear she isn't physically ill, but the sheer sadness written all over her face is heartbreaking. Saria sits slumped at the table, lost in her own misery, and while our hero knows something is dead wrong, the tension in the room makes it almost impossible to even speak. Sufia points out those guys are constantly staring at the desk, and while Claire laughs at their tragic, unrequited love, Kohaku shuts her down instantly.
He spins around to face one of the men and delivers a direct message.
He offers to return later for the application, but the guy insists there's no point, since she's already busy working. Suddenly, Saria catches the sound of a voice she knows all too well. She recognizes him immediately and shouts the hero's name at the top of her lungs. He approaches the door, feeling the heat of the moment. He rubs his neck in total embarrassment as she leaps over the counter, demanding to know why he's been gone for so long. She's been dying to tell him something massive, but our hero is just standing there, completely clueless. Saria explodes with rage, claiming she has a life-changing message for him while Kohaku watches on in total confusion. She blames him for everything while trying to celebrate his success, leaving the announcer absolutely baffled by the good news. Claire's face turns beet red with pure rage, wondering when on earth he even met this girl. Sophia whips around to her master in total shock, her mind racing to figure out what's happening. He's dying of embarrassment as the whole room stares him down, desperate for some juicy gossip. Kohaku shouts for her to spill the message, while she just stares back, completely baffled by his sudden intensity. This intel is way too big to keep secret. He wants every single person in the room to hear it. He demands the cold, hard truth right now, asking why she's suddenly gone dead silent. The girl nervously rubs her chin, her face glowing bright red from the sheer awkwardness. Overwhelmed with shame, she stammers that maybe this isn't the right time or place to talk. Our hero just throws his arms wide in total confusion, demanding to know what she's hiding. He's basically screaming, "What's the holdup?" as the tension in the room reaches a breaking point. They burst into the Tamer's Guild reception area, where everyone was in a state of total chaos as Saria slammed her papers down. Our protagonist sat there looking defeated, while Sufia kept her cool, Claire fumed with rage, and Fenrir was somehow fast asleep. Saria asked if he was just exhausted, but he shot back that someone was threatening his life, and he was talking about her good news. She snapped, demanding to know who the culprit was so she could punish them, while our hero stared at her, knowing she was the one. Deciding to just let it go, he asked about the good news she mentioned, which reminded Saria to finally let him see the surprise. She reached out and handed him a silk handkerchief that had been carefully folded into the shape of a secret envelope. As our hero started to peel back the fabric, he looked up at her, completely baffled by what he was seeing. "Wait, what on earth is this? No way, it can't be real." Resting right there on the silk was a piece of rare Leia metal. And before he could even say a word, she clapped her hands with pure joy and shouted, "Congratulations! You've finally become—" Just 1 week in and he's already hitting silver rank. They tried to promote him after the last mission, but things were way too chaotic, until now. Leon hands over the gleaming medal, giving her the signal to finally make it official. While our hero dwells on the last quest, Sufia glares at Claire with total disapproval, forcing the embarrassed spirit to look away. The doll shouts that this is exactly what she expected from her master, but Kohaku cringes, wondering how they can lie to his face so boldly. He's stunned, arguing that he only picked some herbs and ore, but Saria snaps back that the insane quality of his loot is way above his pay grade. The guildmaster officially approved the silver promotion, but Saria is shocked to see our hero looking totally miserable about it. He claims he doesn't deserve this special treatment, but Saria just sighs, telling him this is pure recognition for his insane skills. As a Tamer, his rise through the ranks is actually a massive win for the entire guild's reputation. He's baffled how this helps the guild, so she gets dead serious and explains the brutal truth behind their ranking system. The guild is desperate for real pros, because while they have plenty of low ranks, legendary platinum and mithril tiers are incredibly rare. The guild thrives by promoting talent, so it's time to rank up and tackle the real monsters. And finally, the truth starts to sink in. He should wear this victory like a badge of honor, because he and his spirit squad pulled off something absolutely legendary. Kohaku's hands tremble with nerves as he reaches out to claim the gleaming medal. He fastens the prize to his chest while Saria beams, telling him it looks perfect on him as he offers a quick word of thanks. Saria wonders if he's ready for a high-stakes silver rank mission today, but our hero shuts her down instantly. He's only here to slaughter some goblins and test out his lethal new blade. But as Saria glances at the weapon, her eyes widen in shock. She gasps, asking if it's a magic blade, and he confirms it's the real deal before dropping the name of the master blacksmith who forged it. "Wait, the Zaku's Doiman?" she screams in disbelief, while our MC just shrugs, not even realizing he's carrying a masterpiece. That master hasn't touched a forge in 3 years, so Saria demands to know how he pulled this off, forcing him to spill the beans while begging her to keep it a secret. She swears her lips are sealed, but she still needs to tip off the guildmaster, and he finally gives her the nod. He's locked in on a goblin-slaying quest, and after the receptionist hands over the details, he gives a quick nod and prepares to move out. Saria is losing her mind trying to explain how a bronze ranker crushed a mithril beast, while our hero finds out 10 goblins are lurking near Marizona and starts his journey on foot. Sufia warns him to ditch the flashy gear and dress modestly, leaving him totally confused by her weird advice. The doll explains that Marizona is a total slum where flashy clothes are a huge mistake, so Kohaku agrees to blend in with the locals. Our hero waves goodbye to a still stunned Saria, who can only watch him go while begging him to stay out of danger. After a long trek, the group finally arrives at the coordinates. They've reached the outskirts of Arizona, the village that was supposed to be a struggling, broken-down wasteland. The villagers are busy working the land, and Claire gasps in total shock at the sight before her. This place looks like it's swimming in gold, and Fenrir lets out a sharp bark to back her up. Our MC realizes something is horribly wrong, and Sufia confirms his fears. Her search magic is coming up completely empty. Wait, actual supernatural forces in this place? Our hero's jaw dropped. What on earth was she hinting at? Sufi broke it down. Legendary beasts exist, and their sightings are kept far away from any search engine or public record. Kohaku's mind raced as he processed the terrifying reality of mythical monsters living among them. He scanned the village huts once more and nodded, deciding they'd investigate the mystery right after finishing their mission. She obeyed her master's command, but suddenly, Fenrir growled a warning. A pack of goblins was closing in fast. He thanked his companion for the heads up and took cover behind the jagged rocks, spotting the enemy squad. There they were. A nasty group of 10 goblins moving in perfect formation, exactly like the quest description said. He realized he'd never swung a blade at a moving target before. But if he could just strike that glowing line on the monsters, everything would fall into place. Sufi stepped up to his side and whispered a sudden proposal. She offered to jump in and back him up, leaving him completely stunned. Did she really just offer to help? The doll brings up the brutal clash with Toa, reminding him how she used Crush's magic to buff her own body. Shocked, our hero asks if it's actually possible to flip the script and use magic in reverse. She confirms it, noting that while tamers usually hide behind their beasts, almost no monsters can cast buffs like this. This secret technique is known only to a few, leaving him with a massive decision to make. He wonders if borrowing his friend's strength will be enough as memories of their past struggles flash through his mind. With a look of pure determination, he finally declares, "I'm in." Sufia steps up, pleading for the others to lend him their power. The ritual begins as the doll grabs his hand, triggering the incredible enchanted swordsman skill. Raw power surges through his veins, but Sufia warns him that he's still not a trained blade master. He knows he can't use fancy martial arts, but as he charges, the goblins realize a monster is coming for them. Our hero swings his blade, and in that split second, the path to victory becomes crystal clear. He finally masters the perfect stance as Sufia closes her eyes to channel a massive, stat-boosting buff while Claire and Fenrir watch in total awe as he explodes into action. He charges the incoming monsters, slicing through the air like a lightning bolt and reappearing behind them. The goblins are shredded in an instant by his mystic blade, leaving his lieutenants cheering as Kohaku sheathes his sword, stunned by the insane power of an enchanted swordsman. As he regrouped, Claire screamed that it was legendary, and Fenrir cheered along as our hero thanked them for their incredible support. He knows he couldn't have done it alone, and bit by bit he's finally mastering his true strength. He used to be stuck watching from the sidelines, but those days are officially over. Thanks to the unwavering support of his comrades and friends, he was finally evolving into a force to be reckoned with. Our hero gazed at his lieutenants, yearning for the day they'd finally stand as one on the field of battle. Fenrir pushed for them to hit the village, and the MC immediately gave the green light. As they closed in, the wolf caught scent of a stranger, sending a shockwave of surprise through the MC, Sufia, and Claire. Ashua's voice suddenly pierced the air, shouting in disbelief as our hero stood frozen by the unexpected encounter. They shared a powerful handshake as the leader roared with excitement, while the MC demanded to know how they ended up in this neck of the woods. Asura explained he was just scouting, but Kohaku pressed him, asking if he was really there to solve the mystery of the land's sudden fertility. The leader grinned at his sharp intuition, declaring that as a swordsman, he couldn't stand by while their sacred lands were at risk. He claimed he'd never find peace if he stayed away, leaving the MC stunned by the mention of a holy ground for bladesmen. Ashua confessed that despite his many travels here, he had never seen the world transform like this. He was dead set on questioning the locals, making the MC realize they might be chasing the exact same mystery. Our hero admits he's just scouting the area, prompting the leader to go silent before offering to tag along, leaving Kohaku absolutely stunned. "Of course I can," the man declares, promising to spill the secrets of his blade as they set off together. After hearing the MC's tale, Ashua inspects the weapon and gasps, calling the craftsmanship nothing short of legendary. It's incredibly light and perfectly balanced, making him want one for himself as he hands back the enchanted blade with a nod of gratitude. Zakus wants the world to know he's back in business, and the leader is so thrilled he considers ordering 10 of these masterpieces on the spot. The MC is shocked by the massive order, but the leader realizes he can't hog them all, leaving Kohaku in awe of the sheer wealth these mythic heroes possess. Suddenly, Ashua freezes in his tracks, pointing a trembling finger at a massive oak tree that definitely wasn't there before. Our hero stares at the leafy giant in total confusion while Ashua watches the local kids playing nearby with a look of pure shock. Ashua tells the MC to stay put while he goes to interrogate the kids, and our hero quickly agrees. As soon as the leader walks away, Kohaku turns to Sufia and whispers the chilling truth. This is the exact same tree. The doll confirms it. She can feel the raw power of a mythical beast pulsing nearby, while the assistant explains that this massive oak is pumping life-giving nutrients into the entire field. Our hero stops in his tracks to watch the leader with the children, as Kohaku suggests an even more dominant mythical force is pulling the strings. Suddenly, Sufi screams out the name Gaia, leaving the protagonist absolutely stunned. The Earth God of Skia? He gasps, and the doll confirms his fears with a chilling nod. Claire, perched right on his head, warns him that while the people worship her as a goddess, she's actually a terrifying monster. No way! Why would she do this? He cries out. But the spirit admits she's clueless, though she knows this creature never acts without a hidden purpose. Just then, Ashua bursts back onto the scene and quickly apologizes to Kohaku for the delay. He reveals the shocking truth. The queen herself planted this tree just 3 days ago, making our hero's jaw drop. The leader confirms the legend, explaining that the moment she dropped the seed, it exploded out of the ground at a supernatural speed. This growth brought instant wealth to the village, and now every local hails it as the Queen's Miracle. He points out cryptic symbols carved into the massive roots, and the protagonist is stunned to see the mysterious markings for himself. The leader admits the script is indecipherable, but insists they crack the code, and Kohaku nods in total agreement. Ashua decides their first move is to reach the village chief's house right away. Suddenly, a girl rushes over from the fields offering to lead the way, leaving him stunned until her friend jumps in to promise they'll get him there safely. Flashing a warm smile, the leader thanks the kids for their kindness, while our protagonist can't help but admire how incredibly charming the man is. As they stroll through the village, they witness a bustling community hard at work, tending to lush gardens and thriving fields. The leader is shocked by the vibrant glow on the villagers' faces, making our hero wonder if the newly healed land is fueling their spirits. The kids beam with joy as they point out the headman's home, but the protagonist is left reeling when he realizes he's being called a mere companion. Stepping into Elder Yosaku's home, Mimir proudly announces she's arrived with the legendary Lord Ashua of the Battle Guild and his partner. The elder welcomes them with open arms, and after a round of respectful bows and formal introductions, he gestures for them to take a seat. As the group gathers, Yosaku cuts straight to the point. Are they here to investigate the legendary sacred tree? Our hero is caught off guard by the name, but the leader steps up and confirms that's exactly why they've arrived. They've come to scout this suddenly lush landscape and that titan of a tree, a legend Yosaku confirms is 100% real. The queen's insane magic made the seed sprout in just 3 days, leaving Ashua stunned by a level of power he's never seen before. The MC whispers to his partner that they need to inspect the tree firsthand, and the boy is totally down for it. He presses the elder about the cryptic symbols etched into the roots, and Yosaku tells them to go right ahead. Mimir is chosen to guide them, and the elder turns to the girl who first welcomed the group. She promises they can rely on her, and after a short trek, they finally arrive. Mimir leads them to the colossal oak, and the MC is absolutely floored. It's so massive, it's literally a pain in the neck to look at. He asks where the symbols are hidden, and she points him straight. She warns them that the path ahead is strictly off limits, so they'll have to forgive her. The group stares at the mysterious symbols, completely baffled by the cryptic markings. Claire's eyes widen in total shock as she realizes what's written there. Sufia gasps in amazement, realizing these are legendary ancient runes, and she begins to decipher them. He chants the text aloud. The eternal world is a never-ending dream, guarded by a master of illusions. This phantom warrior serves the king of shadows, and those who watch the darkness are in grave danger. They will be crushed on this holy soil, and our hero listens in total shock as the gates to peace open. He's stunned by the translation, realizing that with Mimir here, they are completely stuck. They must scatter now and meet Asha after sunset, so he turns to the leader with a plan. He whispers his secret proposal, and the boy smiles at Mimir, thanking her as she departs. He credits her for leading the way, explaining that her help is the key to his guild report, leaving Ramir blushing with pride. As the sun dips below the horizon, the allies regroup under the shadow of the massive oak tree. Ashua rushes in with an apology for the delay, but our hero just shrugs it off, claiming he only just got there himself. The boy leans in, desperate to know if they've found anything, and the protagonist prepares to reveal the truth. The journalist confirms the breakthrough, crediting his familiar for cracking the code as Kohaku leaps over the fence and signals them to follow. Ashua is blown away, wishing he could actually see these invisible spirits, while the MC presses his palm against the bark and tells the boy to do the exact same thing. Once Ashua is ready, the MC warns him to keep his grip tight and never let go while the ancient symbols are being read. The protagonist begins chanting the cryptic runes, declaring that the eternal world is nothing but a never-ending illusion. This massive illusion is given form by a legendary world-class swordsman, and this master of the blade is commanded by none other than the King of Illusions himself. Witness the moment evil is absolutely obliterated on this field of battle.
On this sacred ground, the gates to a whole new world are finally swinging open.
Suddenly, the tree erupts in a blinding flash as mysterious doors manifest on its trunk, while Ashua shoves the hero back and screams for him to get out of there. The entire group stands frozen in pure, unadulterated shock at the sight. A massive doorway stands wide open, pouring out a radiant, heavenly light from within. Dazed and confused, the hero asks for the plan, but his ally only has one answer. We're moving forward. But as they draw closer, that brilliant glow vanishes, plunging everything into a terrifying darkness. Enveloped in shadows, NC begs Claire for help, and the spirit ignites a roaring flame in her palm to pierce the gloom. Ashua takes the lead, thanking Claire before ordering the protagonist to stay close to his back, and Kohaku gives a sharp nod of agreement.
As they descend into the depths under Claire's flickering light, the leader demands to know the secret behind that spell, but the hero admits he was just reading his familiar's translation.
Ashua speaks up, asking if he can present his guest to the legendary King of Illusions. He identifies the group as the Master of Illusions, Kohaku, and a legendary swordsman, who might just be him. Shocked, our hero asks why he'd think that, but the young man explains that only a true king could command such invisible, mythical beasts. Fenrir howls with joy, asking if his master really is the king, leaving our hero completely baffled as they press forward. It's a bizarre sight, the world's greatest swordsman being guided by the King of Illusions, and Claire can't help but notice. She turns back, pointing out that the spell only held together because the King of Illusions was the one leading the legendary swordsman. As the door swings open, the leader admits that anyone else would have failed, leaving our protagonist feeling incredibly awkward. He's definitely not ready to embrace the title of king just yet. The idea of leading someone as powerful as Ashua feels completely out of his league. With a smirk, the man asks if he's mistaken, but a flustered MC stammers out a no, while Kohaku jokes that he'd make a world-class detective. Ashua lets out a dark chuckle, promising to consider the offer, while Sufia watches them with a piercing, thoughtful gaze. The leader's words were heavy, but that final warning echoed in their ears. All evil will be obliterated on this holy soil. The gates to the world have swung wide, revealing the path to the sacred realm as the very air begins to shift. Bizarre tremors ripple through the atmosphere, and the boy screams for our hero to stay on high alert. Kohaku's heart races as he stares in pure shock at the unfolding chaos. What on earth is that? He gasps, squinting his eyes to catch a glimpse of the impossible. Deep within the thrashing currents, something massive begins to stir. Is it a man? No, it's something far more unbelievable than a mere person. Massive buildings and entire landscapes are manifesting right before their eyes. Then, in a flash of pure sorcery, the entire world around them simply vanishes into thin air. The group suddenly finds themselves standing right in the heart of a village that our hero recognizes instantly. This is Mirazona Village, and Sufia claims this place is actually a living memory, leaving the protagonist completely baffled. The doll continues her explanation, suggesting they've stepped back in time to witness the Mirazona of the past. Just then, they spot a sobbing child, and Ashua sprints over to see if the kid is all right. He reaches out to comfort the boy, but something absolutely bone-chilling happens. His hands slide right through the boy's body as if he's nothing but a ghost. Our hero realizes the truth. These are just echoes of the past, meaning every person and building they see is just a phantom. They can't interact with anything here, and the leader looks totally stunned as he struggles to wrap his head around this. The poor boy huddles against a wall with his head in his knees, while a heartbroken Ashua laments that he's powerless to help an injured child. Claire drops a bombshell, claiming this boy is actually the legendary swordsman Ryugo, sending shockwaves through the entire group. The leader scans the boy with a piercing gaze as Sophia reveals that this history dates back 300 years. In that ancient era, a monstrous dragon nearly wiped the nation off the map until the master swordsman Ryugu struck it down. That legendary kill transformed him into the world's greatest savior, a hero whose name is still whispered with awe today. It finally clicks. Our hero remembers reading about this icon as a child, obsessed with his godlike swordplay and insane training. Claire rolls her eyes, mocking him for still being a total crybaby, which sends the MC into an indignant, offended rage. The spirit wears a wicked smirk, revealing that even after becoming the world's best, Ryugu was still the same pathetic man. From terrifying dragons to tiny forest beasts, the hero actually ran away from everything, leaving Kohaku completely speechless. Sophia adds that he was a broke gambling womanizer, while Fenrir calls him a total drunk. Man, it's a good thing Ashwa didn't hear that. He leans over and whispers to Claire, asking if the legends are just a pack of lies. But she insists every crazy word is the truth. Sophia drops the ultimate bombshell. His strength is 100% real, but it's fueled entirely by his own pathetic cowardice. Our hero stares in shock at the sobbing boy while the doll keeps talking. Pure terror pushed him to train like a man possessed. That was his hidden truth. The MC recalls the legends of his brutal training fueled by fear, but why choose the life of a warrior? He had every chance to walk away, and no one would have blamed him for it. Sufia reveals he despised the blade, but his overwhelming gift left him with no other choice. Before the MC can ask about this power, a girl's voice rings out as Ryugo's sister sprints toward them. She collapses beside him, frantically checking his wounds and begging to help. He tells her to get back home, while our protagonist breathes a sigh of relief that she's back. Just then, Ashua signals the MC, gesturing toward two suspicious men in the distance. They look exactly like ruthless bandits, and they've been tailing her every move. Without warning, the world spins out of control, and Kohaku gasps. Are they being teleported again? As the dust settles, they find Ryugo standing in a doorway with nothing but a wooden stick, facing down a bandit who's pinning his sister to the floor and laughing about how much money they'll make selling them both. As the girl struggles to break free from the monster's grip, the bandit turns his cold gaze back to Ryugo and spits out a threat. He mocks the boy, saying even a pathetic loser like him is worth some coin, but first, he wants to have a little fun first, barking an order at his partner to restrain the kid. The second thug lunges at our hero to pin him down, while his sister's terrified screams echo through the room. She begs them to let Ryugo escape and leave him be, but the brute pinning her down has heard enough. He snarls at her to shut up and delivers a brutal, bone-shattering blow with every ounce of his strength. Her body goes completely limp as she falls silent, and Ryugo erupts into a scream of pure, unbridled agony. His shriek is so deafeningly loud that the approaching bandit's ears literally pop from the sheer force of it. This moron won't stop screaming, and the bandit has finally reached his breaking point. Sick of the noise, the thug winds up for a brutal strike, but he's way too slow. Ryugo lunges forward, swinging his wooden blade with terrifying speed. He connects with a devastating strike that ends the fight instantly. The bandit drops like a sack of bricks, leaving his partner frozen in pure shock. Ryugo's gaze is filled with nothing but pure, unadulterated fury. Our hero senses a chilling vibe and realizes the boy changed the moment he grabbed that weapon. A dark energy pours off him, prompting the MC to ask if he's some kind of secret master. The boy simply says no, leaving Kohaku completely speechless at his raw talent. Even though he fights like a total amateur, Ashua can tell something insane is happening. This power is a total blessing. Another bandit lunges at Ryugo with a blade, but before he can even blink, he's absolutely shredded by the hero's devastating blade. He pulls his sister to her feet as she whispers his name, her eyes filled with relief. Suddenly, the entire world begins to warp and spin out of control. The group is instantly warped to a completely new, mysterious location. They're surrounded by jagged rocks and sparse trees as our hero realizes the world has shifted once more. The leader points toward the horizon, where a woman sits calmly smoking a pipe next to a much older, battle-hardened Ryugo. It's Mio, the hero's master, and she commands him to slay the massive lizard lurking nearby. Ashua gasps, wondering if this man is really Ryugo, while our hero notes that years must have flown by. Suddenly, the hero lets out a roar as he locks eyes with his next target. This beast is a towering mountain of muscle, and there's no way he can take down a rare lizard warrior like this. One single strike will pulverize him instantly, sending him straight to the afterlife in a heartbeat. The hero and the leader stand frozen in shock, but Claire just shrugs, claiming he's always been this pathetic. Mio takes a long drag from her pipe, wondering when he'll finally realize he's actually a god-tier prodigy with the sword. Ryugo screams at the top of his lungs, wishing he was a ladies' man instead of a fighter, while Ashua and Kohaku realize this swordsman is a total joke. Ryugo collapses in a heap of despair, and the woman brutally tells him they never liked him anyway, making the master burst out laughing. Ryugo snaps, yelling that she's a heartless monster for throwing the cold, hard truth right in his face. Suddenly, the lizard man hears the noise and whips around to face them as Mio prepares to speak. His loud mouth just blew their cover, and the hero irritably warns him to slay that reptile now or prepare to die. He tries to back out and let her handle it, but she stares him down, telling him there's one thing he better never forget. The hero snapped back, refusing to listen to a single word, but she kept insisting that girls crave powerful men. And hearing those words, Rebo finally stood up. He unsheathed his blade and marched straight toward his enemy. Ashwa rubbed his forehead, thinking a swordsman like this would be a total cakewalk, and the MC agreed. He looked at him as the entire world began to warp and shift once more. As Ryugo and Mio stood by the crashing waves, she cut him off, begging him to stop calling her master and just use her name. It was obvious to everyone. The sparks of love were flying between them. He finally whispered her name out loud. She threw her arms around him and pulled him into a deep kiss as the MC turned to his ally. Their bond grew through the struggle, but the world shifts once more as the leader thanks him and says he's doing just fine. Ashua chuckles, suggesting Ryuko is just a kind soul searching for peace, and the protagonist can't help but agree. As the waves crash against the shore, Ryugo sits beside Mio and makes a heavy confession. He admits he still can't bring himself to love his sword, seeing it only as a source of endless conflict. Mio pauses, her voice trembling as she asks if he truly despises the blade. She fears he hates her for forcing the weapon into his hands, but Rugo's intense gaze makes her take it back instantly. He reveals the one thing he actually loves about his sword. It's the bond that tied their fates together forever. Mio breaks into a sudden laugh, agreeing with him completely, as Ashua continues the tale. On that very day, they made a solemn vow to never pick up a weapon again, a choice the MC finds profound. But even as they leave, the leader remains behind, watching the couple disappear into the horizon. Just then, the protagonist notices the entire world shifting and transforming around them yet again. The scene shifts to show Mio, glowing and pregnant, resting in her chair. He leans down, tenderly pressing his ear against her belly to listen. Standing right there, the protagonist's sister is wearing a massive grin. She flashes a bright smile at them before the hero makes his exit. The hero looks around in total confusion and asks, "Wait, where are we right now?" Ashua explains that they're standing in the woods right outside Mirazona village. Suddenly, Rugo's bags crash to the ground as he stands there paralyzed. He gazes over the treetops in horror while the leader alerts our hero. Plumes of smoke rise from the horizon and Rugo charges toward the fire, screaming for his family. Ashua barks an order at the MC to get moving and follow him. They arrive to find the entire village swallowed by a raging inferno. Flames roared everywhere, but in an instant, the entire world just stopped. Everything was frozen solid as the leader realized the impossible. Time had completely halted. But why? His heart sank as he spotted Rigo's sister collapsed on the ground. A bandit's boot was crushed against her head, while nearby, Mio lay in a pool of blood after being slashed open. A shimmering invisible wall blocked their path, etched with the ominous words, "The Swordsman's Trial." It was a cruel ultimatum: save one girl and let the other die, forcing him to decide who survives this nightmare. This was a brutal test of strength, and the clock was already screaming, 60 seconds remaining. Ashua watched in total shock as the truth set in. This was the ultimate trial for a legendary swordsman. His very title was on the line, and he had to find a way to break free before his time ran out. The screen flashes to a nightmare scenario where both girls are seconds away from being executed. The leader's mind races to figure out how to prove his worth while the protagonist watches him with suffocating intensity. The boy's command echoes through the air once again. "Show me your true strength!" Is it power? Is it speed? He's desperate to understand exactly what kind of miracle he needs to perform. He turns his gaze toward Rugo, who is standing there completely paralyzed by fear. Without wasting a heartbeat, he barks an order for Kohaku to clear the area. The protagonist demands to know the plan, but the leader admits he's flying blind, even though the burden of choice rests solely on him. He's the one calling the shots now, and the tension peaks as the clock ticks down to the final 6 seconds. Suddenly, Ashua drops into Rugo's exact combat stance and prepares for the unthinkable. At the very last possible moment, he unleashes his weapon and absolutely obliterates the wall. Our hero stares in absolute awe at the sheer power of that blade. In an instant, it all clicks. He finally sees the truth about his partner. This ally is a pure genius, executing a style so flawless it's almost divine. With a perfect strike, the leader silences the bandit, mocking Mio from afar. He realizes they're both safe, just as Sufia begins her cold, hard calculation. She tells her master that if Ryugo hadn't turned his back on the path of the sword, he would have saved everyone, mirroring Ashua's legendary strength in that very second. Suddenly, the hero's weapon shatters into a million shards, unable to handle the pressure. Ryugo's raw talent was too much for the blade, leaving him powerless to save his own sister. He's haunted by the guilt of quitting the sword, and the doll whispers, "Yes, that's it exactly." That was the cold reality. His sister was beyond saving, and his own power was driving him to the edge. This tragic loss forced him to grip his sword once more, fueled by the agony of his grief. He sought a path to true redemption through the blood and steel of battle. She explained that from that day on, he dedicated his entire soul to mastering the blade. He was too late to save her, and that failure sparked a descent into a literal living hell. He fought through the nightmare until the world finally hailed him as the legendary Holy Swordsman. Staring at the hero's tear-stained face, they finally witnessed the raw, terrifying truth of his godlike talent. The leader put away his steel while Ryugo rushed to Mio, pulling her into a desperate, crushing hug. Suddenly, a glowing system window materialized before Ashua's eyes with a shocking notification. By braving the trial, he's unleashed a devastating power worthy of the ultimate swordsman. It was enough power to save everyone, leaving the protagonist and his phantasms completely shell-shocked. The message roared on, as Ryugo officially bestowed upon him the divine power of a sword saint. Brilliant light erupted in the air, spiraling down and fusing into Asha's right hand. He stared at his palm, feeling a surge of incredible heat radiating from within. He tightened his grip and made a solemn vow to Ryugo that he would carry his legacy to the very end. Armed with this power, he'll draw his steel to save every soul, leaving the protagonist completely breathless. As those final words faded, a blinding radiance suddenly ignited the sky. And right there, in the center of the glow, the hero's image finally manifested. Ryugo looked the boy dead in the eye and told him that everything now rests on his shoulders. Then, in the blink of an eye, the entire vision vanished into nothingness. The trial is finally over, and the group retreats back into the safety of the tree. Our hero hands over his cloak and gear to his weary comrade. The boy offers his thanks, still in shock that the test is actually finished. "It's done," the MC confirms, promising that the struggle is behind them. He lets him know that the rest of the crew is waiting for them right now. The leader looks the protagonist in the eye and credits him for the victory. Ashua secures his cloak and speaks of the Swordmaster, a man worshipped as a divine being. He seemed like a god of pure strength, but he survived a brutal past that leaves Gohaku stunned. He embraced his vulnerability and swore to never retreat, forging himself into a legend. He raises his blade high as the MC smiles, knowing exactly what Ryugo would do. He was just a human being like anyone else, and Ashua nodded in total agreement. With the spirit looming overhead, our hero realized this side of Ryugo was a legend never written in any book, and they were the lucky ones to witness it. But that power only brought him misery. And in that heavy silence, Claire reached out to ask if he was okay. He stared at her, completely lost, unaware that tears were already flooding down his cheeks as the spirit spoke. Burning with embarrassment, the MC wiped his eyes and apologized, confessing that Ryugo had always been his ultimate idol. He never dreamed his hero had endured such a tragic past. Just as the leader stepped toward him, he placed a firm hand on the boy's shoulder, telling him it was a blessing they uncovered this secret together. To the leader, Ryugo was the peak of perfection, and he began making his way toward the exit. The boy shouted for our protagonist to follow, declaring that they would live every single second of their lives with everything they've got. As he vaulted reaching toward the jagged rock, he grabbed Kohaku's hand and hauled him back to his feet. Our hero gave a firm nod of agreement while his phantasms watched the scene with proud, beaming smiles. Following close behind Yeshua, the MC nearly slammed into his back when the boy suddenly froze in place. Terror gripped Kohaku as he stammered out a question, but their leader stood there like a silent, motionless statue. Confusion washed over the MC. Was time frozen again? But Sufia quickly reassured him that everything was under control. The legendary testmaster was about to make his grand entrance at any second. A blinding light erupted from the heavens as the sword god Liga descended, while the doll made a shocking proclamation about the phantasms. In this very moment, not a single soul among them could hope to rival his combat prowess. Liga touched down and dropped to one knee before our hero, declaring it an absolute honor to finally meet King Kohaku. He introduced himself as the divine god of the blade, just as Sufia began to speak to him. He dropped a bombshell on our stunned hero, revealing that he was a phantasm too, prompting the MC to politely beg him to stop bowing and just stand up. The deity rose and apologized for dragging him into this chaos, but our hero admitted he always felt like an outsider, even though he knew there had to be a hidden purpose. "It's to bring about eternal peace," the god declared, instantly triggering the MC's memory of those exact words carved into the ancient oak tree. He was absolutely floored. Eternal peace were the very words etched into that wood, proving this was no mere coincidence. When he realized he and Ashwa were essential, God revealed a shocking twist. They still needed 4 more allies to complete the mission. 4 more? Do I know them? He pressed. But Liga could only apologize, insisting that their identities had to remain a secret for now. Our hero stared at him in total disbelief, demanding to know why they were needed when the world seemed perfectly peaceful already. God's expression turned grim as he delivered the terrifying truth. This world is actually teetering on the brink of total destruction. Sufia turned to Liga in a panic, asking if the world was destined to be reborn, while Kohaku stood by, completely paralyzed by the news. In that heavy moment, Liga realized that even though Gaia was holding him back, the ancient seal was rapidly losing its power. He could wake up at any second, and Sufia can't tear her worried eyes away. Claire shouts to put the talk on hold, but Fenrir snaps back that she's completely clueless. According to the dolls, only 3 races are supposed to inhabit this world: humans, demi-humans, and monsters. But 3 millennia ago, the truth was much darker. A terrifying 4th race once ruled the land, the demons. Our hero stares in total shock, gasping out, "Demons?" History claims they vanished. But Sophia drops a bombshell. They're merely sealed away. Claire's voice trembles with pure, unadulterated terror. The word sealed hangs in the air as a heavy, suffocating silence grips the entire room. Finally, the protagonist turns to Liga with a burning question. "If the seal is breaking, are the demons coming back?" God shook his head, warning that while they can handle the demons, something far more sinister is still trapped in the shadows. The ultimate source of all evil, the embodiment of pure darkness. The Demon King Sakuya is about to be resurrected. The Demon King? Our hero gasps in disbelief as Sufia begins to reveal the terrifying truth. He was a cold-blooded tyrant who forced every demon to bow before him, leaving Kohaku absolutely shaken to his core. Kohaku had heard of monsters in fairy tales, but a Demon King was unheard of, and the doll warns his power is off the charts. This monster was so overwhelming that humanity literally wiped him from their memories just to survive the trauma. They buried that nightmare to never face it again. But now our hero demands to know if Liga is actually serious. He needs to understand exactly what his role is in this world-ending catastrophe. The spirit confirms the heavy truth. He must lead the strongest warriors to slay the Demon King, leaving our hero totally speechless. Liga drops the final bombshell, only he has the power to win. And the protagonist feels like his mind is about to explode. The god's voice trembled as he begged for forgiveness, his very existence flickering on the edge of oblivion. His physical form starts to crumble into dust, sending Kohaku into a total state of panic. "Answer me!" Kohaku screams, desperate for a comrade in the coming war. But Leje only responds with a mysterious smirk. This shell is just a temporary vessel, so if he wants a real contract, he'll have to track him down at the Sword Village. With those final words, the god vanishes into thin air, leaving our hero wondering if he's just being played for a fool. Suddenly, Ashwa's voice cuts through the silence, making the MC jump out of his skin. After a quick apology for the scare, the MC realizes time is finally moving again and urges the group to keep pushing forward. He's completely blindsided. How on earth is he supposed to explain the existence of a demon king he's never even heard of? As they step out from the massive tree, the team is stunned to find their only way back has completely vanished. Ashua shoots a suspicious look at the MC, but our hero just brushes it off with a grin, claiming it's all in his head. Their leader suddenly suggests a trip back to Ryugo's old house. He's dying to revisit the place where a true legend, a real hero, once lived. He looks at Kohaku, wondering if he'll tag along. Kohaku nods in agreement, desperate for a moment of peace after all the chaos. Sunrise hits the Fleur Diner as our hero stares blankly at his plate, lost in thought. He's obsessed with the Demon Lord's revival and Liga's warning that only he can win, until Claire snaps him out of it. They joke about exploding the king from within or tearing him limb from limb, leaving our hero actually feeling pity for the monster. Frederica rushes over with a worried look, noticing his untouched plate. But he just sighs and blames his exhaustion. She beams, claiming she has the perfect remedy for his burnout, making him look up in total confusion. He asks what she means, but she just stabs a juicy piece of meat and offers it with a smile, saying that when someone is they're exhausted and need a feast to recover, so she insists on spoon-feeding him herself, while a frustrated Claire watches in total silence. He takes a bite and raves about the flavor, while Federica boasts that her dad's cutlets are world-class. leaving both Claire and Sofia fuming with jealousy that they didn't get to feed him first. As she keeps the food coming, Federica asks if he knows the ancient proverb that happiness starts with breakfast, only to admit with a grin that she actually just heard it from her mom. Right on cue, the mother walks over with a smirk and reminds everyone that she's definitely not ancient just yet. She apologizes to our hero and teases that her daughter clearly has a massive crush on him, sending Federica into a total spiral of embarrassment. Mom tries to spill the beans about what happened when he returned yesterday, but Federica screams that it's all lies before hiding her bright red face in her hands. Noticing his ghostly pale skin, the woman asks if he's truly okay, but he just smiles and says that seeing Federica's spirit is all the energy he needs. The woman beams at him and warmly wishes him a wonderful meal. Claire is absolutely stunned that this little girl is falling for their master, but Sofia just shrugs, noting how cute they look since they're from the same race. Sofia jokes that she'll be a real beauty in 5 years, but the MC tells them they're taking a child's rambling way too seriously, only for Claire to snap that he's completely clueless. Sufi steps up and declares that true love transcends age, gender, and race. It's the depth of the heart that matters. Fenrir shouts his love from the rooftops, and our hero laughs, telling the whole group he loves them all just as much. Suddenly, Frederica interrupts to tell her mom that they're completely out of spices. Her mother gasps in shock, wondering if even the pantry has run bone dry. Frederica confirms the worst. There's nothing left, leaving her mother panicked and overwhelmed with her mountain of work. Seeing her struggle, our protagonist steps in and offers to hit the market to grab every single thing she needs. She feels guilty for the trouble, but he won't take no for an answer, insisting he owes her one anyway. She thanks him profusely and shyly asks if he'd take Frederick along for the ride. And of course, he agrees without a second thought. The girl can't believe her luck, her face turning bright red from pure embarrassment. He gestures for her to follow, and she gives a timid nod, barely managing to squeak out an okay. As they walk, Frederick asks about his life as a tamer and what kind of beasts he's faced, and she's stunned when he mentions taking down a colossal spider. He describes the monster as being half the size of the entire inn, but quickly tells the shocked girl that they only won because the whole team fought together. He's a tamer. Frederica is totally lost at first, but then the realization hits her like a truck. She shouts with pure excitement, "Wait, so where are all his familiars hiding?" Our hero shoots a confused look over at his assistants, wondering how to explain this. Claire lets out a heavy sigh and wonders how to handle him, before activating her skill to send a glowing greeting to the spirit girl, who finally reveals her name. Frederica's eyes light up as she screams in joy at the sight of a blazing, fiery letter. Claire keeps the message flowing since she can't actually see the spirit, but Frederica is over the moon and catches on instantly, prompting Sofia to just whisper, "Ah, children. Kids are so simple. As long as they believe, they're perfectly happy," Sofia notes, and our MC couldn't agree more. Suddenly, a chilling conversation catches his ear. People are whispering about a string of mysterious child disappearances. Rumors are flying that a third kid vanished last month, and with one child disappearing every single month, everyone's terrified that a spirit abduction is actually happening again. Sofia warns the MC that this might be exactly what Ashwell was talking about, reminding him of the leader's warning regarding a twisted shadow organization. This twisted cult snatches children under 15 every month, sacrificing them to the flames in a horrific sacred ritual. He reveals it's the Burning Lotus clan, fire-worshipping fanatics, and urges the girl to get to safety right now. She looks at him in shock, but he just quips that a chef is useless without his spices. Federica gives a firm nod, finally understanding the plan. They make it back to the diner where Kohaku hands over the goods and says his goodbyes. Back at the guild, our hero demands answers from Sofia, who reveals she's been secretly tracking reports of spirit abductions. There's no official record of the crimes, meaning this deadly clan is operating from the shadows once again. The protagonist demands their location immediately, while Claire screams that she's going to crush them with her own hands. Sofia tells her to pipe down, explaining that these guys regrouped after being wiped out 3 years ago, so a simple raid won't cut it. The MC realizes that unless they pull them out by the roots, this will be an endless game of cat and mouse, and the doll agrees. Tearing through the clan would be a breeze, but if even one member slips away, they'll just regroup. This cycle of blood must be stopped. If they don't end it here, then every single thing they've done is completely meaningless. Claire stares back in total shock, quickly apologizing to the doll and admitting she just let her panic get the better of her. The MC looks at his allies and lays down the law. It's time to split up and cover more ground. He and Claire are going to alert the guild, while Sophia and Fenrir track down the enemy's hidden base. The doll accepts the mission with cold precision, certain they'll succeed. But when the MC looks to Claire for a right, she doesn't say a word. Fast forward a bit, and our hero is back on the move. The antagonist enters the guild and offers Toa a polite apology for the intrusion, but she insists it's no trouble at all. She wonders what he's looking for, and he cuts straight to the point. What does she know about the dark rumors haunting the town? Toa confirms the horror, mentioning the chilling reports of children being kidnapped by restless spirits. He lays out the situation with a quick and clear explanation. The girl takes a slow sip of her tea before revealing the truth about these strange occurrences. These incidents only strike once a month, with only 3 attacks recorded so far. The locations change every time to hide their tracks, but she's certain he knows more than he's letting on. Kohaku looks her in the eye and gives her a completely honest yes. He reveals everything he's uncovered, confirming the Burning Lotus clan has resurfaced after 3 years while his allies hunt for their hideout. She warns him that this intel is for platinum rankers only, and as he swears his secrecy, To stops him with one final question. She's desperate to know how he got this intel and where exactly his mysterious sources are hiding. Suddenly, Claire leans in and whispers the name Ashua directly into the protagonist's ear. He brushes her off as To commands her secretary to fetch the documents, and he moves instantly to obey. Our hero is absolutely thrilled, and the girl assures him that he won't be facing a brutal interrogation. She flashes a confident smile, making it crystal clear that he has finally earned their total trust. He scours the secret documents and realizes the cult only surfaces for rituals, meaning they have to wait for the next kidnapping to wipe them all out. He thanks the guild leader and prepares to analyze the intel with his familiars before heading to the Fighters Guild to break the news. Toa already has her sights set on Ashua, Cole, and Rowan, and our protagonist knows they're the perfect squad for the job. The moment he steps through the door, Fenrir howls with pure excitement while Sophia gives him a heartfelt welcome home. He can tell they've hit the jackpot just by looking at them, and the doll immediately beams a holographic map onto the wall. She reveals the Blazing Lotus clan's secret hideout, confirming 13 enemies are lurking inside, and according to Fenrir tracks 9 men and 4 women by scent alone, while Sophia notes they are all draped in ominous blood-red cloaks. With 43 enemies confirmed, our hero prepares his final report as the doll asks the burning question. What's the next move? Our hero decides to head straight for the Fighters Guild with Toy to spill everything they've uncovered, remembering that you can never have enough allies. Sophia nods in approval, then turns her gaze toward a clearly frustrated Fleur. She knows exactly why Fleur is fuming. She's been in those shoes before. A bunch of fools branded her as sacred, and now they're going to hunt down every last target with everything they've got. Rear screams for vengeance for Dacus, while Spirit vows to finish the job alongside our hero. The journalist flashes a grin at his assistant as Sophia chimes back in with more intel. Their investigation reveals a terrifying pattern behind all these recent kidnappings. Every single tragedy from 3 years ago happened under the pitch-black sky of a new moon. Our protagonist is absolutely floored by this chilling revelation. By the next morning, the Tamer's guild assistant rushes to To report every single detail. He realized the kidnappers would strike again under the shadows of the next new moon, and the girl could only whisper, "I see." That means we've only got 3 days before the next disaster strikes. MC and Toa finally reach the Fighters Guild, marching straight toward the Guildmaster's inner sanctum. MC couldn't help but wonder, what kind of monster leads a squad as powerful as Ashua's? Leon finally stepped into the room and apologized for the wait, but the protagonist was frozen in shock. Staring at the master, he wondered if it was really him, while Leon noted how long it had been since he'd seen To. He teased her about the heavy makeup, wondering if she was just trying to hide a few new wrinkles. She let out a laugh, firing back that he actually looked like he'd grown an inch since their last encounter. Kohaku watched the tension rise, wondering if these two actually hated each other, but Leon had an answer ready. He claimed he traded his physical growth for pure power, while her beauty was useless against dragons, leaving To to giggle that he's still just as short as ever. His words weren't an insult, but she couldn't help feeling a wave of envy as the rest of the squad roared with laughter at their obvious rivalry. Ashua leaned in close, whispering to the master that the girl was standing right next to the legendary Kohaku. "So, you're the Phantasm Tamer?" Leon shouted, spinning toward our hero, who could only nod in total shock. Leon's gaze locked onto him with intense focus, while Sophia turned to Tensley with a burning question. "What's with the sudden interest?" Claire snapped, her irritation clearly boiling over. Claire and Fenrir were ready to brawl if the master got too close, forcing our hero to beg his companions to stand down. Finally, the master spoke up, declaring that the boy possessed a truly incredible aura. He could sense the pure, noble spirit radiating from the very depths of his soul. The group bashfully admitted the old man was the real deal, allowing our hero to finally breathe a massive sigh of relief. But then, without warning, Leon spoke up once more. "Wait, there are 3 of them?" Our hero gasps in shock, wondering if the master can actually see them. The master just smirks, admitting he's blind to their forms, but he can feel their overwhelming godlike power radiating through the air. Kohaku is absolutely floored because until this very second, no human had ever even sensed these entities existed.
Suddenly, Toe forces a polite smile to mask her annoyance, telling Leon to stop staring down her top-tier Tamer.
She's standing her ground, making it clear that the protagonist belongs on her team. Leon actually looks flustered, caught off guard by her sharp tongue. He lets out a dry laugh, admitting he thought she'd gone soft after leaving the battlefield, but clearly she's still got that fire. "All right, fine," he sighs, realizing she wouldn't show up without a damn good reason, so he agrees to hear them out. "About time!" she snaps back sarcastically, shoving the protagonist's report into his hands to explain the situation. This report reveals the secret trail of the Burning Lotus clan, the same group that escaped Leon's team 3 years ago. The squad of warriors hung on her every word, while the master wondered why they hadn't gone their separate ways yet. Toa admitted that was the plan, but Kohaku's secret investigation proved these villains were definitely involved. Leon gripped the report, scanning it one more time before demanding our hero explain every single detail. Our protagonist didn't hold back, spilling everything he knew until Leon finally gave a heavy nod of understanding. Leon locked eyes with the young hero, his gaze burning with an intense, unshakable focus. "I'm ready to believe you," he declared, and our hero's heart soared with pure, unbridled joy. The master laughed at his shocked face, teasing him for being so relieved, which left our hero totally tongue-tied. Leon explained that Ashwa's high praise was enough because he trusts his comrade's judgment implicitly. Our hero turned bright red with embarrassment as Leon stood up, stretching his muscles and getting ready for action. He roared with determination. "Excellent! It's time to avenge Dacus and finally annihilate the Burning Lotus clan." Ushua's entire vibe shifted into a deadly battle stance, while Cole adjusted his glasses and Rowan cracked his knuckles ready for war. Toa announced the Tamer's Guild would provide 2 mithril-ranked warriors as backup, leaving Kohaku absolutely stunned since he'd never met Tamers that powerful. The master warned that a massive army would blow their cover, so they'd stick to a lethal strike team of 8, including the mithril powerhouses. Cole pressed the master for answers, knowing the clan's twisted ritual to kidnap the children was happening in just 3 days. They needed a way to slaughter the enemy without a single child getting caught in the crossfire, prompting Leon to let out a mysterious laugh. He looked at the group and declared that he had the ultimate plan. First, they'd flood the streets with terrifying rumors of the kidnappings, forcing every parent to lock their doors and keep their kids inside. Kohaku realized the genius behind it. If the streets were empty, then the danger to the kids would be at an all-time low. But since nothing is certain, Leon turned to Toa with a sharp command. "Get the Tamer's Guild to help us spread those rumors right now." The girl let out a sharp snort, biting back her temper before finally giving in with a cold, "Fine." Leon snapped in a fit of rage, swearing he'd end her, but Ashwa quickly stepped in to talk his master off the ledge. The Fighters Guild master regained his composure and confirmed the 3-day deadline, getting a firm nod from Toe before they parted ways. She shot a glance at our hero and gestured for him to fall in line. Ashwa looked the MC dead in the eye and insisted they have each other's backs from here on out. His allies beamed with pride as the MC gave a sharp, confident yes. Later that night, the crew huddled up in the Master Tamer's office, where Zania gave him a playful pat on the head. "The Flaming Lotus clan is still active?" Corona shouted, mocking his trashy taste and demanding he go rot in the corner. As our hero wondered if these two were actually elite mithril-ranked Tamers, Zania teased Coroni for her scary expression, only to get a sharp, "Tell that idiot to beat it," in return. Toa caught the MC looking completely lost and leaned in to whisper, but he just stammered out a nervous, "Not at all." Corona's jaw dropped as she asked if he was really a phantasm tamer, and after he confirmed it, Zanya locked her eyes on him. She studied him with intense focus before finally admitting, "Wow, he's actually got a pretty face." Then, her gaze shifted toward his back as she spoke with pure awe. "The celestial wolf Fenrir? You're questing with the beast that swallowed the moon?" Hearing this, the legendary wolf let out a satisfied grin. Our hero was stunned, wondering if she could actually see the moon swallower, but Xenia just laughed at his confusion. This was a total shock for Kohaku, as his Black Lion companion realized just how legendary Fenrir truly was. Corone was equally stunned by his power to tame the primordial flame, leaving Kohaku wondering if she was talking about Claire. The spirit huffed with indignation at the lack of respect, while our hero reeled from the fact that Claire was a total celebrity. He made a mental note to hit the books and study up on these legendary phantasms the second he got back. Toa finally realized the truth. The introductions were over and the bond was officially formed. In just 72 hours, they'll launch a full-scale assault to wipe the Burning Lotus clan off the map. The allies roar in agreement as Zanya thrusts his fist high, shouting for everyone to get ready. Lord Dacus, keep your eyes peeled and witness our absolute triumph. They are going to finish this fight and end their reign of terror once and for all. They're putting everything on the line. And 3 days later, the time is finally here. Under the pitch-black shadows of the new moon, the atmosphere turns chilling. The sinister members of the Burning Lotus clan finally creep into the silent city. Kyodon senses something's wrong with the empty streets, but Adar blames the terrifying rumors haunting the town. With everyone locked inside, Kyodon worries the lack of targets will ruin their dark ritual. Adar pauses for a heartbeat, admitting that while pure children are the ideal choice, they'll have to make do. In this miserable world, even the smallest catch is a prize worth hunting. Their plan was simple and cruel. Snatch orphans from the outskirts of the village. They spotted a lone boy with his back turned, completely distracted by his canvas bag. Idar grabbed a heavy brick and crept up to deliver a brutal blow to the kid's head. Kyodon worried they'd been seen, but Idar boasted that his strike was perfectly measured. He hoisted the body over his shoulder, focused only on reaching the ritual before time ran out. With the clock ticking, the bandits sprinted deep into the thick forest. But they weren't alone. Claire and Sufia watched their every move from atop the mighty Fenrir. Corona and the rest of the crew stayed hot on their heels, stalking them through the shadows. The trail led them straight to a rotting shack bathed in a mysterious glowing light. Corone spots 2 members of the Flaming Lotus clan lurking nearby, and Toa immediately demands answers. "Where's our leader?" Toe asks, as Corone tunes her senses and confirms he's finally making his descent. Our hero lands and immediately apologizes to the crew for keeping them waiting in the shadows. He whips out a map and reveals the enemy's numbers. 43 warriors, all packed with lethal magic weapons. They're dead silent, likely prepping for the dark ritual, leaving Corone absolutely stunned by the intel. Unbelievable! Everything is falling right into place! Toe cheers, beaming with pride for her brilliant leader. He's a tactical genius as always, and though he's a bit embarrassed by the compliment, he gives a humble thanks. It's time to launch the mission, but deep down, our hero can't help but wonder if they'll actually pull this off.
Earlier, Leon ordered Toe to get the full scoop from Kohaku, so they could finally assign everyone their roles for the strike.
She confirms she's on the job, and as the tension rises, our protagonist begins to lock in his final strategy. He vowed to push himself to the absolute limit. Inside that house, the gruesome sacrifice had already kicked off. The cultists ignited a roaring bonfire, screaming for the fire spirit to witness their absolute devotion. They begged the spirit to incinerate anyone blocking their path to a new paradise. Just as they prepared to spill blood, the victim spat at them and surged with overwhelming physical power. The cultists froze in shock as Leon looked them in the eye and told them they were pathetic, sickening trash. 8R stared in disbelief at the figure's small frame, raven black hair, and piercing purple eyes. Could this tiny kid really be the legendary Leon? The guildmaster ripped off his cloak and loomed over the stunned crowd. Idar screamed, wondering how the battle guildmaster found them and why he was hiding behind the face of a child. Was his power so immense that he didn't fear them? Kyodon gripped Aida's shoulder and spoke up. He's standing all alone, facing down 43 enemies at once. Unfair? Leon scoffs with total indifference. Don't be a damn fool. Every single exit is already sealed tight. There's absolutely no way out. Honestly, he thinks this level of force is total overkill for these losers. Dark shadows of the Guildmaster's elite allies loom over the house walls. The clan members start scanning the area, their hearts racing with anticipation. Kyoto glances at the moonlit sky and realizes Leon wasn't bluffing when he sees a mysterious girl. She's mounted atop a massive dragon. It's the legendary dragon mistress herself, the absolute ruler of the Tamer's Guild, the one and only tyrant Toa. Adar points toward the wall and demands to know, who the hell are those two? Kyodon, the Beast King Zania Erkline, and the unyielding Coronet Zambato have entered the fray. And looming right behind him is the devastating demonic fist, Rowan Barrett.
Joining them are the magical arsenal Cole Magicalia and the swordsman's blessing Ashua Croids.
He realized that even 7 mithril-ranked legends wouldn't be enough to save them now. Eider instantly understood the plan and roared at the top of his lungs. Everyone, fall back! Smash through the window and escape! They tried to run, but the ritualists shrieked that the exit was completely out of reach.
An invisible wall blocked their path as our hero emerged, clad in a glowing, translucent robe.
He told the clan this seal uses tech from thousands of years in the future and is totally unbreakable, while the leader suddenly realized he was standing right next to Leon.
Adar could only stare at the protagonist, his mind completely blown by what he was seeing.
Leon snaps his head toward the announcer, demanding to know who this mysterious fighter really is.
This is the ultimate peak of science. Optical camouflage that wipes his entire presence from existence.
Our hero declares the game has changed because he's finally mastered the blade, leaving Leon and Kohaku absolutely stunned.
Piodon glares at the Tamer's guild badge on the boy's chest, realizing he's wielding the raw power of monsters.
But where are his beasts hiding? Meanwhile, Leon tells our hero to stay calm and keep his head in the game.
Kyodon unleashes a roar as he ignites his devastating magical flames.
Suddenly, Claire manifests out of thin air and snuffs out the fire like it was nothing. The clan members gasp in horror. Forced magic dispersal is impossible, especially since the grimoires didn't even budge. A shocked Leon asks what just happened, and our hero reveals his familiar Claire as Quidone orders his men to draw their steel. He points a trembling finger at our hero and screams to his comrades that this guy he's the one holding up the magical barrier. Tear him to pieces! They're going to swarm his inner circle and crush them with sheer, overwhelming numbers.
Leon drops into a lethal combat stance and delivers the grim news.
He shouts to the MC that they're counting on his support, but tells him to study the enemy's every move first.
Kohaku gives the nod. The leader roars in approval and they dive headfirst into the fray.
A single devastating swing obliterates the entire front line, leaving Moise speechless as Leon barks, "The real fight starts now!"
Rowan slams into a charging bandit with bone-shattering power. The impact is so brutal that the guy just folds in half instantly. Suddenly, the gold member's fist erupts into a roaring inferno.
The clan members freak out as he blazes with magic book skills, but don't be fooled. These guys are no pushovers. Zania sized them up, realizing these thugs were gold-rank threats, with some even pushing into the deadly platinum tier.
He unleashed a massive burst of mana and summoned his ultimate allies.
A pack of ferocious, shadow-cloaked black lions materialized from the darkness. She snapped at him in a rage, reminding him they were supposed to strike together. Since he was ditching the plan, she summoned her own familiars and ordered them to keep pace and annihilate the enemy. Zania watched the carnage and called the beasts brutal, but the girl just lifted her chin with a smug, confident grin. Adar barked at Bernard to stop holding back, shouting that they'd bury those mages under a mountain of bodies. The clan warriors charged the heroes, but were instantly encased in massive, jagged slabs of ice. Bernhard stood there speechless, shocked that such power was unleashed without even chanting a spell.
Cole coolly pushed up his glasses and muttered that their luck had just run out.
They have no idea what they're up against. He reveals his magic staff, explaining it can store spells and fire them off instantly, way faster than any chant. Bernard shouts in awe, "You guys are absolutely incredible!" Leon turns to Asha with a smirk, telling him it's time to unleash his legendary swordsman's blessing on these fools. Kyodome freezes in pure shock, his mind racing. Did he really just say that? The swordsman's blessing? No way! That's a legendary one-of-a-kind skill. Only the elite warriors of the Takalai's kingdom should have that power, so how on earth does he possess it? Ashua draws his steel, claiming he doesn't care how he got the power, only that it's his now. While the hero realizes the Takalai's kingdom has been stripped of their gift, Ashwa tells his enemy he better start worrying about surviving. Once this power is unleashed, there's no holding back the carnage. The leader moves with lethal precision, showing off his absolute mastery of the blade, and his enemies are completely crushed by his overwhelming pressure. He was completely overwhelmed by the sheer, bone-crushing force of every strike. It wasn't until Asha finally ceased his assault that the reality of the situation set in. The crushing weight of their total and utter defeat finally washed over them. The battlefield was a nightmare, littered with decapitated corpses and mangled remains. Our hero stood frozen in his tracks, paralyzed by the sight of the gruesome carnage. He stared in wide-eyed amazement, struggling to process the sheer scale of the violence. His mind immediately went to the Fighters Guild and how vital they were to this mission. Seeing them in action was nothing short of a breathtaking display of elite power. But don't be fooled. because the remaining enemies were still a massive threat. Even with only 8 men left, the enemies dominated the center with terrifying strength. They stood back to back amidst the carnage as a literal ocean of blood stained the floor. A desperate clansman turned to Kyodan, screaming that they'd never make it out of this alive. Kyodan remained deathly silent, letting the tension hang heavy in the air. The protagonist stared at him, completely shocked by his eerie composure. Leon snapped that acting this confident was a total joke. Such arrogance in the middle of a massacre was pure insanity. It was clear as day. This man was hiding a monstrous secret. Kyodan finally spoke, growling that he hadn't intended to reveal this power so soon. But the moment of truth had arrived as the clan leader reached for his very soul. He unsheathed a legendary blade dripping with a terrifying pitch-black haze. Our hero leans in and whispers to Sufia, "This is a magic weapon, isn't it?" And she confirms his darkest fears. Forged 3 centuries ago, this cursed blade devours the souls of its victims, earning it the terrifying name Soul Eater. The MC is completely stunned. A Soul Eater? He demands to know the horrific fate of those trapped inside that steel. Sufia explains that their mana is harvested and ground down, turning the blade into an impossibly sharp killing machine. But it also drives the wielder into a blind madness, and right then, Kyodan does something that leaves everyone paralyzed with shock. Even his own allies aren't safe as he drives the blade straight through his comrade's chest. Without missing a beat, he spins around and ruthlessly slits the throat of another teammate. The rest of the group tries to restrain him, but their desperate efforts are completely useless against his insane power. Zania looks over at Toa and admits that this situation is spiraling way out of control. He warns her that things are getting deadly, and she can't help but agree. Zania and Koroni yanked back their familiars while our hero watched in total shock. He was stunned. Was the toe actually about to jump into the fray? She shot him a quick wink, signaling that it was finally time to act. He ignited his crushed breath and roared for Claire to shield everyone, and the spirit instantly obeyed. Our hero spun toward Leon and pulled him close, making sure he was out of harm's way. "Don't move a muscle!" he screamed to the rest of the group. That's when the toe fire dragon unleashed a terrifying and deadly, massive fireball at the enemies, ready to incinerate everything in its path. As the world began to burn, our hero saw his chance and stopped the chaos cold. He crushed the fiery tornado, leaving the toe in awe as he wondered, did I really just block a dragon's breath? He could feel it. The fire's destructive power had surged to a terrifying new level. Leon reached out to the barrier in shock, finally witnessing its true overwhelming form. Kohaku's power was so devastating that the Flaming Lotus clan was literally erased from existence. Shaking off his shock, our hero turns to Toe and screams, "What the hell were you thinking?" She just flashes a smile and tells him to relax, claiming she knew they'd be safe with him. But he's still fuming that she didn't give him a heads up. Leon gritted his teeth, thinking she definitely should have warned him before things went south. Suddenly, Claire spins toward her master and points directly at a massive pillar of rising smoke. Our main character stands there, completely paralyzed with disbelief. Out of the thick, swirling haze, Kyoto's silhouette slowly begins to emerge. He gasps in total confusion. How is this even possible? He didn't have a scratch on him, but the clan leader just let out a bone-chilling laugh. He thrust his arms toward the sky and roared at the top of his lungs. He claimed this was the fire spirit's divine will, even though such a power shouldn't even exist. Kyodan mastered the raging inferno, demanding that they finally accept the ultimate sacrifice. Toa admitted the legend was real, but he had no clue how to handle this nightmare. Claire screamed in pure defiance, refusing to have anything to do with this disgusting abomination. Kodan unleashed his twisted, heretical magic to seize control of the battlefield. As a dark awakening began, Leon screamed for Ashwa to strike the final blow. "I'm on it!" the boy shouted, sprinting full speed toward his enemy. He gasped in horror as he saw Kyodan plunge his own blade straight through his own throat. He collapsed to the ground, his strength completely failing him. Vile, pitch-black blood sprayed everywhere, staining the earth around him. Our hero froze in shock, wondering why he'd take his own life, while Corone stood there completely baffled. "Look! Something is crawling out of his body!" Zanya screamed in terror. This situation was spiraling out of control, and the girl knew things were about to get ugly. Claire gasped at the terrifying aura, and Sufia confirmed her worst fears. It was definitely happening. Fenrir barked out a question, asking if the monster had finally escaped, but our hero was still lost. He couldn't wrap his head around their cryptic words or the nightmare unfolding before him. When he realized this was the legendary fourth race the sword god warned about, he was absolutely floored. The doll dropped a bombshell. The Flaming Lotus clan never actually worshipped the fire spirit. These were the most sadistic monsters in history, using the fire spirit's name to demand brutal blood sacrifices. This ritual weakened their ancient seal, and Sufia warns our hero that these nightmares are finally returning. Zanya's voice trembles in total confusion as she gasps out one word. Demons? Leon's mind races at the mention of demons as his eyes lock onto Quadone. A sinister, dark aura radiates from him, proving he's one of the monsters sealed away 3,000 years ago. The Fighters Guild leader suddenly panics, screaming that something massive is closing in fast. Our hero roars at Sufia to activate the protective barrier before everyone gets wiped out. Suddenly, a pitch-black force slams into the shield, and our protagonist watches in absolute shock. He can't believe his eyes. Their ultimate defense is actually starting to buckle and break. With the barrier failing, Zania and the others are left terrified, wondering what kind of monster just attacked. Anya unleashes a barrage of pitch-black spears and jagged spikes. Corone realizes they're razor-thin, looking just like deadly threads. Rowan shudders, claiming they look like terrifying clumps of raw mana. Leon turns to our hero and admits that he saved his life. "I owe you one," Leon says, and the MC just gives a cool, calm response. But secretly, the MC is stunned that anyone else even noticed that attack. Suddenly, the reincarnated Kyoto steps forward and begins to speak. He starts chanting in a twisted ancient tongue that makes no sense. The MC freezes in shock as the demon mocks him, sneering that humans are too pathetic to understand. Right then, Ushua screams down from the sky for a lethal surprise attack. He strikes from the blind side, but the demon is way too fast. The monster dances around the blade, leaving everyone in total shock. Ushua smirks, confirming that their opponent is a newly crowned master of the blade. Rowan roars at Cole, demanding they stop slacking and back up their ally. Leon turns to Kohaku, relieved that he finally reunited with his kin. Seeing his familiar's incredible progress, he finally feels safe leaving him behind. Our hero stares back, his jaw dropping in pure disbelief. Leon was supposed to be his ultimate shield, but now he's choosing to save his other allies instead. Claire promises to protect her master alone, but Sufia declares they'll do it as a team. Leon stares him down, pleading for his continued support as the battle enters a deadly new phase. His survival rested entirely on his own shoulders. Suddenly, the demon lunged, crushing Rowan's hand in a terrifying grip. The monster sneered, mocking Rowan for failing to train his true potential. It laughed in his face, declaring that his journey ended right here. As the demon prepared the killing blow, Rowan stared death in the eyes. But out of nowhere, Leon's blade flashed, striking the monster with lethal precision. "Master Leon!" Rowan gasped, his voice trembling with pure relief. The guildmaster stood his ground, letting out a thunderous roar at the beast. He screamed that no one touches his friends and lives to tell the tale. Leon summoned his spiritual spear, Revenant, and charged into the heat of battle. The Guildmaster ignites his piercing phoenix skill, blasting the demon backward with a devastating strike. Leon's jaw drops as he watches the demon's gruesome wounds vanish in a literal heartbeat. Grinning like a psychopath, the demon mocks the Guildmaster's spear, claiming the attack only made him crave more. Terrified, Zanya screams if all demons are this invincible, while Goron begs the protagonist's familiar for a way to win. Sufia knows the truth and commands her master to relay her vital message to the group immediately. He's not invincible. Demons are monsters that feast on souls to skyrocket their power to terrifying heights. After devouring 58 souls over 3 years, this beast's strength and healing factors have reached insane levels. Toa desperately asks the protagonist if this nightmare has a single weak point they can exploit. Sufia confirms he does, explaining that normally, you just have to take off a demon's head to kill it, or drive a blade through his heart, but those stolen souls have made him immune to a standard death. These demons draw power from the souls they've devoured, but they bleed just like anything else, and 57 of them are still standing. Counting the main body, that's 58 lethal strikes he has to deliver to end this nightmare. The demon is stunned, demanding to know how a mere human could possibly uncover the ancient secrets of his race. Looking at the souls they've claimed, it's clear these monsters haven't crawled out of hell in over 3,000 years. Their existence should be a forgotten myth, yet our hero just watches them with a cold, deadly silence. He drops a gaze so heavy and violent it freezes the air, forcing the demon to finally make his move. The monster decides to claim a soul right now, lunging his hand forward to tear the life out of Cole. Leon bellows a warning as a colossal sphere of black fire screams through the air toward his comrade. Claire panics, shouting to her master that they're in serious danger and he needs to alert everyone immediately. The protagonist passes the warning along, telling his allies to stay back. Those dark embers are the literal flames of Black Death. One single touch is all it takes. Make a mistake and you're dead before you hit the ground. It's a fire element meant to scatter, but the demon smirks, demanding they focus every ounce of power into the assault. Extinguishing the flames of Black Death? Spot on! But how could a mere human possibly know that secret? He locks eyes with our hero and notices a chilling, malevolent energy radiating from his body. A dark aura is pouring out of him, so the demon decides to make him his very first target. Right then, Leon bellows at the top of his lungs, screaming for him to stay back. The entire team blitzes the demon at once, but the monster effortlessly dances around every single blade. He mocks them for being too slow, leaving the guildmaster paralyzed with shock at his insane, godlike speed. The demon lunges forward to crush Leon's squad, but his lethal strikes are completely shattered against their wall. Their defense stands tall as Zania, the familiar, charges up a devastating surprise attack from the shadows. "I won't let these pathetic weaklings slow me down," the demon roared. He locked eyes with To and Zanya, seeing the fire in their eyes. As their familiars lunged, the demon unleashed a devastating storm of blows, but his attacks bounced off. A powerful barrier was protecting every single one of them. He pivoted to kill Kohaku first, charging the protagonist with everything he had. Suddenly, Kohaku unleashed a dark, sinister energy that left the demon paralyzed with shock. His limbs refused to move as an invisible force dragged him violently to the ground. He collapsed in agony, his neck shredded by a series of brutal, piercing wounds. He realized the MC was a true monster, but he had to finish him off immediately. He scrambled to his feet, but Sufia's familiar was already closing the gap. He slams his boot down, pinning the enemy to the floor as the doll's fury reaches a breaking point. She delivers a chilling warning. Since he dared to touch her master, he's about to face a brutal retribution. Without a moment's hesitation, the doll plunges her mystical blade straight into his back. The demon's body contorts in a blood-curdling scream, realizing with horror that his end has finally come. Corone barks at Toa to stay sharp while Kohaku joins the fray, and the girl nods in grim determination. She calls out to her loyal dragon, Crush, signaling for their next desperate move. The MC watches in shock, expecting a fire attack, but instead, Crush swoops down and swallows his mistress whole. Panic surges through the hero as he fears To is gone, but then Crush perches on the wall and unleashes a bone-chilling roar. Ashua calmly points to Sufia's chaotic battle and asks if that's his familiar, and the MC screams out in total shock. In a state of pure bewilderment, he watches the scene unfold, wondering if this insane plan is actually going to work. Asha keeps her composure with ice-cold confidence, and Leon agrees that's exactly how a pro should act. He explains the unthinkable. A Toha can actually merge with a tamed dragon by letting the beast swallow her alive. This lets her hijack the dragon's massive strength, a legendary power held only by those known as shapeshifters. Our hero is absolutely floored by the news as Leon turns his eyes toward Crush with a mysterious look. "Simply marvelous," Leon says, leaving the protagonist scratching his head over what's so great about this mess. Just then, Sufi interrupts to shout that the barrier is finally gone, forcing the MC to apologize for getting distracted by Crush. Leon gives him a wary glance and hisses a warning to stay away from To, catching our hero completely off guard.